Hi guys! Tonight we're traveling into the ancient forests, winding rivers, and mist-covered mountains of the American Southeast, where the story of the Cherokee Nation begins long before the United States exists, long before European ships appear on distant shores, and long before anyone imagines a republic rising among the wooded hills. You find yourself standing beside a broad river at dawn. Thin fog drifts above the water. Birds call from the trees. The earth beneath your feet feels cool and damp after a night of gentle rain. Around you stretches a landscape that seems endless. Forests cover the hills. Streams sparkle between rocky banks. The mountains rise quietly in the distance. This is a world of deep time. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you settle in, feel free to share your location and local time in the comments below. It is always fascinating to see where listeners are joining from around the world. Now dim the lights. As your journey begins, you move backward through centuries that leave few written records. The Cherokee people themselves preserve traditions about their origins, while archaeologists and historians piece together clues from villages, tools, pottery, and ancient settlements scattered throughout the Southeast. The story stretches far beyond any single date. Your mind drifts across thousands of years. Small communities gather near rivers rich with fish and fertile soil. Families build homes from wood and earth. Children chase one another through open clearings. Smoke rises gently from cooking fires. The smell of wood smoke mixes with damp leaves and fresh water. Life follows the rhythm of the seasons. Spring brings planting. Summer brings growth. Autumn brings harvest. Winter brings storytelling beside warm fires. Many scholars believe the ancestors of the Cherokee emerged from cultures that lived in the southern Appalachian region for generations before European contact. Archaeological evidence reveals continuous settlement throughout these mountains and valleys across long stretches of time. Researchers associated with universities, including Harvard and the University of North Carolina, have highlighted how indigenous societies in the Southeast developed complex communities long before outsiders arrived. The landscape itself becomes a partner in survival. Mountain streams provide fresh water. Forests offer deer turkey nuts and medicinal plants. Rich valleys support agriculture. Every hill and river acquires meaning through memory and experience. You can almost hear the sounds: the crack of branches under footsteps, the rush of moving water, the distant call of birds, the quiet conversations of families ending another day. For many generations, communities grow steadily. Knowledge passes from elders to children. Skills become traditions. Traditions become identity. Yet historians still debate certain aspects of the earliest Cherokee development. Some researchers emphasize migration theories that suggest movement from other regions in earlier centuries. Others argue that cultural continuity within the southern Appalachian homeland explains much of Cherokee emergence. No complete agreement survives, though most scholars recognize the deep roots connecting the Cherokee to these mountains. The uncertainty itself feels fitting. After all, ancient history rarely offers simple answers. As centuries pass, settlements become more organized. Fields expand. Trade routes connect distant communities. Valuable materials move across large distances. Seashells from coastal regions appear far inland. Stone from distant quarries travels between settlements. The world is larger than it first appears. You walk through a village near a river bend. Homes stand around an open area where community gatherings occur. Gardens stretch nearby. Corn grows tall beneath the summer sun. Beans climb supporting stalks. Squash spreads across the soil below. The agricultural system supports growing populations. Meals depend upon cooperation. Planting requires effort. Harvest requires planning. Storage requires preparation for difficult seasons ahead. An intimate scene unfolds nearby. An elder teaches a child how to shape clay into a useful vessel. Patient hands guide smaller hands. The lesson seems ordinary, yet it represents something profound. Knowledge survives because someone chooses to share it. Generation after generation, a gentle breeze moves through the trees. You notice how closely daily life remains tied to the natural world. Weather matters. Rivers matter. Soil matters. The changing behavior of animals matters. Nothing feels separate. Modern people often imagine ancient societies as isolated or simple. The reality is far more complex. Communities possess detailed environmental knowledge accumulated across centuries. Survival depends not on luck, but on careful observation and collective memory. The Cherokee ancestors become experts in their in their homeland. They know where medicinal plants grow. They know which streams flood during heavy rains. They know which mountain passes remain safest during travel. Such knowledge cannot be learned quickly. It requires generations. As evening approaches, fires begin appearing across the settlement. Warm light flickers against wooden structures. Voices soften. The day slows. You sit beside one of those fires. Someone tells a story. Children listen closely. Adults nod in recognition. The story may preserve lessons, history, values, or beliefs. Its exact words are lost to time. Yet the act itself remains familiar. Human beings gather. Human beings remember. Human beings pass their experiences forward. Across the Southeast, societies continue evolving. One important influence comes from the great Mississippian cultural tradition that flourishes across much of eastern North America. Large ceremonial centers rise in various regions. Monumental earthworks demonstrate organizational skill and social complexity. Trade networks expand further. The ancestors of the Cherokee interact with neighboring peoples through cooperation, exchange, and occasional conflict. No community exists alone. Research supported by institutions such as Yale and the University of Chicago has emphasized the interconnected nature of indigenous societies before European arrival. Far from isolated groups living independently, many communities participated in broad networks linking distant regions. The forests hide movement. Travelers arrive carrying news. Hunters return from long journeys. Families visit relatives in neighboring settlements. Ideas travel alongside people. The centuries continue flowing. Seasons become generations. Generations become history. Meanwhile, the Appalachian Mountains remain constant. Their ridges stretch across the horizon. Their forests shelter countless lives. Their streams carve pathways through stone. The mountains become more than geography. They become home, for the ancestors of the Cherokee identity grows from this relationship with place. The land provides food and shelter, but it also shapes memory, community, and belonging. A reflective silence settles over the valley. The stars emerge overhead. Firelight dances across attentive faces. No one present can know what future centuries will bring. No one can imagine colonial frontiers, revolutionary wars, forced removals, or national survival against overwhelming odds. Those struggles remain far away. For now, the world feels steady. The river continues flowing beside the village. Children sleep within warm homes. Elders watch fading embers. Night insects sing from the darkness beyond the firelight. The foundations of a nation are quietly taking shape, not through declarations, not through constitutions, not through written laws, but through families, communities, traditions, and a profound connection to the homeland that will define Cherokee history for centuries to come. The mountains stand watch, the rivers keep moving, and the story is only beginning. Morning returns softly to the southern mountains. Mist hangs between the trees. Dew gathers on tall grass. A cool breeze moves through the forest canopy, carrying the scent of wet earth and fresh leaves. The river that accompanied you through the previous night continues its endless journey, reflecting pale sunlight across its surface. Life is already beginning. Smoke rises from household fires. People move along narrow paths between homes. Dogs wander through open spaces. Farmers prepare for another day in nearby fields. As generations pass within the Cherokee homeland, communities become connected by something stronger than geography alone. The nation is held together by relationships, responsibilities, and traditions that shape daily life from birth to old age. You begin to notice that every person belongs to something larger. Family matters deeply. Yet family extends beyond parents and children. Clan membership helps define identity, responsibility, and social connection. A person carries obligations toward relatives and community members that stretch across entire towns and regions. These bonds create stability in a world where cooperation remains essential for survival. The system feels both practical and deeply human. If a family experiences hardship, others help. If knowledge needs preserving, elders teach. If disputes arise, community relationships help guide solutions. Nothing exists entirely alone. You walk through a settlement as the day unfolds. Homes stand near one another, creating a sense of connection rather than isolation. Children laugh while carrying water from a nearby stream. Adults prepare tools, tend gardens, or discuss matters affecting the community. The sounds are comforting. Wood being split, voices drifting across open spaces, birds calling from the trees, water flowing over stone. For a moment, it feels as though the entire village breathes together. Agriculture remains central to life. Corn, beans, and squash provide dependable food sources. These crops support larger populations than hunting alone could sustain. Fields stretch beyond the settlement, carefully tended through seasonal labor. Planting requires patience. Harvest requires cooperation. Storage requires foresight. A successful harvest means security during winter months. A poor harvest creates uncertainty. Every season carries consequences. Researchers from institutions, including Harvard and the University of California, have emphasized the importance of agriculture in sustaining complex indigenous societies throughout eastern North America. Far from wandering constantly across the landscape, many communities developed permanent settlements supported by farming and regional trade. The evidence appears in archaeological remains, storage pits, agricultural tools, settlement patterns, the physical traces of organized life. As midday approaches, attention shifts toward another important feature of Cherokee society: community gathering places. These spaces allow people to discuss concerns, share news, conduct ceremonies, and strengthen social bonds. Decisions often emerge through discussion rather than simple commands from a single ruler. Leadership exists, yet leadership carries responsibilities. A respected leader must persuade, guide, and maintain trust. Authority depends upon relationships. You notice how much listening matters. People speak carefully. Others consider their words. Consensus often proves more valuable than force. The approach requires patience, but patience helps preserve harmony. A warm afternoon settles across the valley. Insects hum among flowering plants. The scent of growing crops drifts through the air. Somewhere nearby, a child practices a skill under the watchful eye of an elder. The lesson seems small. It is anything but small. Knowledge represents survival. Children learn how to grow food, identify useful plants, prepare tools, and understand community expectations. They also learn stories that preserve history and values. Education happens constantly, not inside formal classrooms. Inside daily life, one generation teaches the next. The process never truly ends. As evening approaches, ceremonial traditions begin to emerge more clearly. Spiritual life remains woven into ordinary experience. The natural world is not viewed as separate from human existence. Rivers, animals, forests, weather, and seasons all carry significance. Life feels interconnected. The boundaries between practical survival and spiritual understanding often overlap. A ceremony begins after sunset. Firelight flickers across attentive faces. The smell of smoke rises into the cool night air. Drums create a steady rhythm. Voices join together in shared participation. You watch quietly. The experience strengthens community identity. It reminds participants that they belong to something older and larger than themselves. Historians and anthropologists continue studying the precise development of Cherokee ceremonial traditions before European contact. Some details remain uncertain because oral traditions evolved over centuries, and early written descriptions arrived much later. Historians still debate how certain practices changed across different periods and regions, though there is broad agreement regarding the central importance of communal ceremonies in maintaining social cohesion. The uncertainty does not diminish the significance. If anything, it highlights the depth of time involved. The night grows darker. Stars appear above the mountains. The fire continues burning. Nearby, an elder begins telling stories. The audience listens carefully. Stories entertain, certainly, but they also educate. They explain relationships. They preserve memory. They transmit values. A child hearing such stories may one day become an elder sharing them with another generation. The chain remains unbroken. Hours pass peacefully. You begin noticing another important feature of Cherokee life: balance. Communities must balance individual needs with collective responsibilities. They must balance agricultural work with hunting. They must balance tradition with adaptation. They must balance authority with cooperation. None of this happens perfectly. Human societies never operate perfectly, yet the effort matters. A physically grounded detail catches your attention. The packed earth beneath your feet still holds warmth from the day's sunlight. The night air grows cooler. Moisture gathers on nearby leaves. Somewhere beyond the settlement, an owl calls through the darkness. The world feels alive and deeply familiar. Despite the centuries separating this moment from the modern world, many emotions remain recognizable. Parents worry about children. Young people seek purpose. Elders hope their knowledge will endure. Communities face challenges and celebrate successes. Human nature changes less than technology. The mountains witness it all. Season follows season. Children become adults. Adults become elders. New generations take their place. Meanwhile, Cherokee society continues developing strength through shared traditions, agricultural success, clan relationships, and communal responsibility. The foundations grow deeper, not through conquest, not through vast armies, through continuity, through belonging, through countless ordinary moments repeated across centuries. A woman prepares food for her family. A hunter returns from the forest. An elder shares wisdom beside a fire. A child learns a lesson that will someday become a memory. These scenes may appear simple. Together, they create a civilization. As another quiet night settles over the Appalachian homeland, the Cherokee people continue building a society rooted in community resilience and connection to the land. The forests remain dark and protective. The rivers continue flowing. The stars shine above familiar mountains. And beyond those mountains, unseen events are slowly approaching. New peoples, new diseases, new opportunities, new dangers. But for now, those distant futures remain hidden beyond the horizon. Tonight the fire burns steadily. The stories continue. And the Cherokee world stands strong within its ancient homeland. The firelight fades into memory as another century passes. Morning sunlight spills across the valleys of the southern Appalachians. Thin clouds drift above forested ridges. Rivers wind through fertile lowlands. The homeland feels vast, familiar, and secure. You continue moving through a world that exists before European contact. For many people today, this period is often imagined as quiet and isolated. Yet the reality is far more dynamic. The Cherokee homeland is part of a larger network of indigenous societies spread across eastern North America. Information travels. Goods move between regions, alliances form, rivalries emerge. The world beyond the mountains is very much alive. You stand beside a well-worn path cutting through dense woodland. Travelers move along it carrying bundles of trade goods. Their journey may last days or even weeks. They bring news from distant communities. They exchange stories, practical knowledge, and valuable materials. The path itself tells a story. Countless feet have worn it into the earth. Countless conversations have unfolded along its course. Countless decisions have shaped the future of communities connected by these routes. Trade becomes one of the great threads binding this world together. Shells from coastal waters travel inland. Stone from distant regions appears in mountain settlements. Decorative objects pass from hand to hand across hundreds of miles. Communities maintain relationships through exchange as well as diplomacy. Nothing remains completely isolated. Research conducted by scholars at institutions such as Yale, Harvard, and the University of North Carolina has emphasized the remarkable scale of indigenous trade networks before European arrival. Archaeological discoveries reveal extensive interaction among societies that outsiders once mistakenly assumed were disconnected. The evidence lies beneath the soil. Artifacts appear far from their original sources. Materials cross rivers and mountains. Ideas travel alongside objects. As you walk through a thriving Cherokee settlement, signs of prosperity become visible everywhere. Homes stand in organized clusters. Agricultural fields stretch beyond the village. Storage areas contain food reserves prepared for future seasons. The community feels confident. Children run through open spaces. Farmers inspect growing crops. Hunters prepare for journeys into surrounding forests. Life follows familiar rhythms. Yet beneath that familiarity exists remarkable sophistication. Agriculture remains the foundation of stability. Corn grows tall in carefully tended fields. Beans climb upward. Squash spreads across the ground. Together, these crops create a dependable food system that supports larger populations. The scent of warm soil rises from the fields. Insects buzz among leaves. A distant woodpecker taps against a tree. The sensory details feel immediate and alive. You kneel beside a farmer examining young plants. The work requires attention and experience. Soil conditions matter. Weather patterns matter. Timing matters. Success rarely happens by accident. Generations of observation shape agricultural knowledge. Nearby, an elderly woman carefully stores dried food inside a protected structure. Her movements are practiced and deliberate. She understands that preparation during abundant seasons helps protect families during difficult months. A simple task, an essential one. Human survival often depends upon such quiet acts of responsibility. As afternoon arrives, attention shifts toward political relationships between communities. Cherokee towns possess their own local identities, leaders, and priorities. Yet they remain connected through culture, kinship, and shared interests. The system is flexible. Different towns maintain influence in different circumstances. Leadership often depends upon respect rather than absolute authority. Persuasion matters greatly. Trust matters even more. You notice how frequently people gather to discuss concerns. News from neighboring communities receives careful attention. Decisions require consideration. Leaders must weigh immediate needs against long-term consequences. Patience becomes a political skill. The process may appear slow, but it encourages stability. The forests surrounding these settlements provide more than resources. They also shape movement and security. Dense woodlands can conceal travelers. Rivers create natural pathways. Mountains offer protection as well as challenges. The environment influences everything. You feel it while crossing a narrow stream. Cold water flows around smooth stones. Sunlight filters through leaves overhead. The air smells of moss and damp earth. For a brief moment, the world seems untouched. Yet, history is always moving, even when change appears invisible. As evening approaches, travelers arrive carrying reports from distant regions. Their news reminds everyone that neighboring indigenous nations possess their own ambitions, concerns, and relationships. Diplomacy never stops. Alliances shift over time. Trade strengthens some connections. Competition strains others. Like every human society, the Cherokee must navigate a complex world filled with opportunity and uncertainty. Historians generally agree that indigenous political landscapes before European contact were highly dynamic. However, scholars continue debating the precise nature of certain regional relationships because evidence from different periods can produce varying interpretations. Some historians emphasize cooperation among neighboring peoples, while others highlight competition and conflict. The truth likely includes elements of both. Human communities rarely fit simple categories. The sun sinks lower. Golden light spreads across the settlement. People return from fields and forests. Cooking fires begin appearing one by one. The smell of food drifts through the evening air. A deeply human scene unfolds nearby. A young boy sits beside his grandfather, carefully listening to stories about previous generations. The elder occasionally pauses, searching for the right words. The child leans forward, eager not to miss anything. Memory matters. History matters. Identity depends upon remembering. The moment feels ordinary. It is also profound. Without such exchanges, entire worlds can disappear. As darkness settles, communal life continues. People gather for conversation, storytelling, and shared meals. The day's work gradually gives way to reflection. The firelight creates moving shadows. Crickets begin singing. Night air cools exposed skin. Someone laughs softly nearby. You feel the comfort of belonging. That feeling represents one of the great strengths of Cherokee society. Community provides more than physical security. It offers emotional connection, cultural continuity, and a sense of place within a larger story. The mountains remain silent witnesses. Generations pass beneath their ridges. Children become parents. Parents become elders. The cycle continues. Meanwhile, forces far beyond the horizon are beginning to stir. Across the Atlantic Ocean, kingdoms compete for wealth, territory, and influence. Sailors explore unfamiliar coastlines. Empires search for opportunity. No one in this village can yet imagine the scale of change approaching. The future remains hidden. Tonight the concerns are local. Weather, harvests, family, community. The stars emerge above the dark forest. Their reflections shimmer on the river's surface. Cool air carries the scent of wood smoke through the settlement. A reflective pause settles over everything. You understand now that the Cherokee world before European contact is neither empty nor primitive. It is organized, connected, adaptive, and deeply rooted in place. It possesses complexity. It possesses resilience. It possesses history. And perhaps, most importantly, it possesses confidence in its own future. That confidence feels natural. The homeland has sustained generations. Trade routes remain active. Communities continue thriving. Traditions endure. The rivers keep flowing. The forests keep growing. The mountains stand unchanged against the night sky. Yet, somewhere beyond the eastern horizon, unfamiliar ships are already moving across vast oceans. Their arrival will transform everything, but not tonight. Tonight, the Cherokee world rests beneath the stars, strong within its homeland, and unaware that a new chapter in human history is drawing steadily closer. The stars fade slowly above the mountains. A pale dawn spreads across the valleys. Rivers shimmer beneath early sunlight. Birds begin their morning calls from towering trees. Mist clings to the lower slopes before retreating into the warming air. The Cherokee homeland appears much as it has for generations. Fields are planted, families work, children learn, elders remember. Yet beyond the horizon, enormous changes are already underway. Across the Atlantic Ocean, European kingdoms search for wealth, influence, and new trade routes. Sailors cross waters that once seemed impossible to navigate. Explorers map unfamiliar coastlines. Traders seek opportunities wherever they can find them. At first, these distant developments seem unrelated to the forests and mountains of the southeast. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the worlds begin moving toward one another. The first reports arrive through indigenous trade networks. Travelers bring unusual stories. Stories of strangers. Stories of ships. Stories of powerful newcomers appearing along distant coasts. The details sound almost unbelievable. Many listeners remain skeptical. Others become curious. The stories continue spreading. You sit beside a fire as news passes from community to community. No one fully understands what these developments might mean. The newcomers seem distant. Their actions appear confined to faraway places. For now, daily life continues. The corn still grows. The rivers still flow. The mountains remain unchanged. Yet, history has begun turning in a new direction. One afternoon, you accompany a group of travelers moving between settlements. The forest path winds through thick woodland. Sunlight filters through leaves overhead. The scent of pine and damp earth fills the air. Along the journey, conversations repeatedly return to the same subject. The strangers. Who are they? Why have they come? Will they remain near the coast? Or will they move inland? No one knows. The uncertainty itself becomes part of life. Eventually, direct contact begins occurring between indigenous peoples and various European expeditions. These encounters vary greatly. Some involve trade, some involve diplomacy. Others produce confusion or conflict. Every meeting carries consequences. The newcomers bring unfamiliar tools, unfamiliar animals, unfamiliar technologies, unfamiliar ideas. They also bring something far more dangerous: disease. This tragedy unfolds quietly at first. People become ill. Communities experience losses that seem difficult to explain. The causes remain invisible. The consequences do not. Modern historians generally agree that epidemic diseases introduced from Europe caused devastating population declines among indigenous peoples across the Americas. Research supported by institutions including Oxford, Harvard, and Stanford has emphasized how diseases often spread ahead of sustained European settlement, transforming entire regions before many communities fully understood what was happening. The suffering is immense, yet it remains difficult to comprehend. You stand within a village where concern hangs heavily in the air. Families care for sick relatives. Elders search for explanations. Traditional knowledge provides comfort and guidance, but some illnesses behave in unfamiliar ways. Fear grows quietly, not panic, just uncertainty. A parent watches over a child through the night. An elder wonders why familiar remedies seem less effective. Neighbors help one another whenever possible. The emotional weight becomes impossible to ignore. For generations, communities have faced hardships. Droughts occur. Crop failures happen. Conflicts emerge. But this challenge feels different. It arrives without warning. It follows unfamiliar patterns. It affects entire regions. The forests remain beautiful. The rivers continue flowing. Yet grief now moves among the living. As years pass, contact expands. European traders begin appearing more frequently. They bring goods that attract interest throughout the Southeast. Metal tools prove valuable. Firearms draw attention. Textiles offer new possibilities. Trade relationships gradually develop. The process is neither immediate nor simple. Both sides must learn about one another. Both sides make assumptions. Both sides misunderstand certain things. A fascinating human detail emerges during these encounters. Interpreters become increasingly important. Individuals capable of communicating across cultural boundaries hold enormous influence. A conversation that succeeds may prevent conflict. A conversation that fails may create lasting problems. Words matter. Translation matters. Understanding matters. The challenge is enormous. Imagine trying to explain an entire worldview to someone raised in a completely different society. The difficulty becomes obvious. Historians still debate aspects of the earliest sustained interactions between Cherokee communities and European newcomers. Some accounts emphasize mutual curiosity and cooperation. Others highlight tensions that appeared almost immediately. Surviving evidence suggests that experiences varied greatly, depending upon location, timing, and circumstance. Human encounters rarely follow a single pattern. You notice this complexity while observing a trading exchange. The atmosphere remains cautious but respectful. Goods change hands. Questions are asked. Observations are made. No one fully trusts the other side yet. No one fully understands the future. Still, the interaction happens. A new relationship begins forming. The physical details remain vivid. Leather goods rest beside metal tools. Horses occasionally appear in regions where previous generations never saw them. New sounds enter the landscape. New scents accompany unfamiliar materials. Change acquires texture. You can hear it. You can smell it. You can touch it. As decades pass, the pace gradually increases. More traders arrive, more information circulates, more opportunities emerge, so do more dangers. European powers compete with one another for influence across North America. Indigenous nations quickly realize that these rivalries may create both risks and advantages. Diplomacy becomes increasingly important. Leaders pay close attention to distant developments. Foreign politics begin affecting local decisions. The world grows larger. A reflective pause settles over the scene. You stand atop a hillside overlooking a river valley at sunset. Golden light spreads across forests stretching toward the horizon. The landscape remains breathtakingly beautiful. Yet beneath that beauty, profound transformation is unfolding. The Cherokee people are adapting, learning, observing, responding. They are not passive spectators. They are active participants in a changing world. This distinction matters greatly. Too often, history portrays indigenous nations as merely reacting to European actions. The reality is far more complex. Cherokee leaders, families, traders, and communities make countless decisions as they navigate new circumstances. Some choices succeed. Others prove costly. All occur within conditions no previous generation has experienced. Night arrives once more. Fires glow across the settlement. Conversations continue. Questions remain unanswered. What will these newcomers ultimately want? How many more will arrive? Can trade coexist with independence? Can old traditions survive alongside new influences? No one knows. The future remains uncertain. But one truth is already becoming clear. The era of isolation has ended. The Cherokee homeland is now connected to forces stretching across oceans and continents. New opportunities have appeared. New threats have emerged. The balance that shaped life for generations is beginning to shift. The mountains still stand. The rivers still flow. The forests still shelter countless lives. Yet the world beyond them is now impossible to ignore. And the next chapter will bring challenges unlike any the Cherokee Nation has ever faced. Morning arrives beneath a sky washed clean by overnight rain. Droplets cling to leaves throughout the forest. Small streams run fuller than yesterday. Sunlight breaks through scattered clouds and turns the river into a ribbon of silver winding through the valley. The Cherokee homeland remains beautiful, yet beauty alone cannot protect a nation from the growing complexities of a changing continent. The newcomers who first appeared as distant rumors have become permanent realities. Traders travel deeper into the southeast. European colonies expand. Rival empires compete for influence. Decisions made in faraway capitals increasingly affect people living among the Appalachian ridges. You begin to sense the emergence of a new skill. Diplomacy, not merely conversation. Survival. The Cherokee quickly learned that relationships with Europeans require careful balance. No single foreign power controls the entire region. Different empires pursue different goals. Their rivalries create dangers, but they also create opportunities. A skilled leader can use those rivalries to protect Cherokee interests. A careless decision may invite disaster. The stakes continue rising. You travel along a busy trail connecting several towns. Messengers move quickly between communities. News carries unusual urgency. Reports arrive concerning shifting alliances, trading opportunities, and military developments far beyond local settlements. Information becomes valuable. Knowledge becomes power. The ability to anticipate change may determine a nation's future. As afternoon approaches, you arrive at a gathering where respected leaders discuss external affairs. The atmosphere remains calm, yet serious. Every speaker understands that the world is becoming more complicated. European colonies continue expanding. Competition intensifies. New settlements appear. Trade grows. So do tensions. The leaders listen carefully. Questions receive thoughtful consideration. Different opinions emerge. No one possesses perfect answers. That uncertainty shapes every discussion. A physically grounded detail catches your attention. Rain-soaked earth still softens the ground beneath everyone's feet. Damp air carries the scent of wet bark and fresh grass. A breeze moves through nearby trees, creating a constant whisper overhead. The setting feels peaceful. The subjects under discussion are anything but peaceful. Throughout the 18th century, Cherokee leaders repeatedly engage with representatives from competing European powers. Trade relationships bring benefits. Imported goods become increasingly common. Firearms influence hunting and warfare. Metal tools improve efficiency in daily tasks. The changes are real. The advantages are obvious. Yet dependence creates risks. The more connected societies become, the more vulnerable they become to disruptions beyond their control. Research conducted by scholars associated with institutions, including Yale, Oxford, and the University of North Carolina, has highlighted the sophisticated diplomatic strategies employed by indigenous nations during the colonial period. Rather than acting as passive observers, many leaders actively negotiated, adapted, and pursued policies intended to preserve autonomy amid expanding imperial competition. The evidence reveals remarkable political skill. You witness it firsthand. A diplomatic meeting unfolds between Cherokee representatives and foreign officials. Greetings are exchanged. Gifts are presented. Discussions proceed carefully. Every phrase carries weight. Every promise invites scrutiny. Trust develops slowly. Sometimes it never fully develops at all. Both sides understand that words alone cannot guarantee future behavior. Still, negotiation remains essential. A successful agreement may prevent conflict. A failed agreement may accelerate it. As years pass, relationships become increasingly complicated. European traders establish deeper connections within the region. Some form personal friendships. Others pursue profit with little concern for long-term consequences. Human motivations vary. They always have. One trader may genuinely respect Cherokee communities. Another may view them solely through economic interests. The same complexity exists on every side. History rarely divides neatly into heroes and villains. The emotional reality feels more complicated. You spend an evening beside a communal fire listening to conversations about these developments. Some people welcome expanded trade. Others worry about growing dependence on foreign goods. Younger individuals often see opportunity. Older voices sometimes express caution. Neither perspective is entirely wrong. Both emerge from experience. A grandmother quietly recalls earlier decades when outsiders rarely appeared. A younger hunter speaks enthusiastically about new tools that make certain tasks easier. The contrast feels familiar. Every generation encounters change differently. As darkness settles, the discussion shifts toward security. Neighboring indigenous nations face their own pressures and ambitions. Colonial expansion affects everyone. Alliances form, alliances dissolve. The political landscape remains fluid. Nothing stays fixed for long. Historians continue debating the precise motivations behind certain alliances formed during this era. Some scholars emphasize economic incentives. Others focus on security concerns or local rivalries. Surviving records often provide only partial perspectives, leaving room for ongoing interpretation. The uncertainty reminds you of something important. Historical actors rarely know how events will unfold. They make decisions with limited information. Just like people today, the night grows cooler. Wood smoke drifts upward into a sky filled with stars. Nearby, someone repairs a tool by firelight. The steady rhythm of careful work creates a comforting sound. Sparks occasionally rise from the flames before disappearing into darkness. Life continues, even while history changes. That continuity matters. Families still plant crops. Children still learn from elders. Hunters still travel forest paths. Communities still gather for ceremonies. The world evolves without abandoning everything that came before. Yet pressures continue mounting. European colonies expand steadily. Population growth drives demand for land. Colonial leaders increasingly view indigenous territory through the lens of opportunity and ownership. The Cherokee view the land differently. Home is not merely property. It is memory. It is identity. It is belonging. This difference in perspective will eventually create profound conflict. For now, however, diplomacy remains possible. Leaders continue seeking peaceful solutions whenever they can. They negotiate. They compromise. They adapt. The effort requires patience, sometimes extraordinary patience. A reflective silence settles over the valley. You stand beside a river at dawn the following morning. Mist drifts across the water. Fish break the surface occasionally before vanishing beneath gentle currents. The landscape appears timeless, yet nothing remains unchanged. New roads are forming. New relationships are emerging. New expectations are taking root. The Cherokee Nation stands at the center of a rapidly transforming world. Its leaders understand the challenges ahead. Perhaps not every challenge. No one could. But they recognize the importance of vigilance. They recognize the value of unity. And they recognize that survival increasingly depends upon navigating forces extending far beyond the mountains. The rivers continue flowing. The forests remain vast. The homeland still endures. Yet the balance that once defined the region grows more fragile with each passing year. Soon, diplomacy alone may not be enough. Soon, larger conflicts will arrive. And when they do, the Cherokee Nation will face choices that test its strength, wisdom, and determination in ways previous generations could scarcely imagine. The river carries yesterday's reflections downstream. Another season arrives in the Cherokee homeland. Forests shimmer beneath summer sunlight. Cicadas sing from the trees. Warm air settles across valleys where generations have planted crops, raised families, and built communities. Yet beneath the familiar rhythms of daily life, tension is growing. The continent is becoming a battlefield. European empires continue competing for power across North America. Their conflicts stretch far beyond royal courts and distant capitals. Every alliance, every military campaign, and every political decision eventually reaches the forests and mountains of the southeast. You begin to feel the pressure. News arrives more frequently. Messengers travel longer distances. Rumors spread through villages and towns. The world seems to be accelerating. For Cherokee leaders, the challenge is immense. Remaining completely separate from imperial struggles becomes increasingly difficult. Trade relationships connect communities to foreign powers. Diplomatic agreements create obligations. Military alliances offer protection while introducing new risks. Every choice carries consequences. You stand near a gathering where respected leaders discuss troubling developments. The atmosphere remains composed, but concern is evident. Reports suggest growing conflict between European rivals. Each side seeks indigenous allies. Each side promises benefits. Each side expects loyalty. The requests place enormous pressure on Cherokee communities. Support one empire and another may become hostile. Remain neutral and both sides may become suspicious. The situation offers no perfect solution. A breeze moves through the trees overhead. Leaves rustle softly. The scent of pine mixes with wood smoke drifting from nearby homes. Children continue playing in the distance, only partly aware of the serious discussions unfolding around them. Life continues. History continues as well. The two are rarely separate. Throughout the 18th century, warfare repeatedly transforms the political landscape of eastern North America. Colonial struggles between European powers draw indigenous nations into conflicts that affect entire regions. Some alliances appear necessary. Others emerge from long-standing relationships. Some are formed reluctantly. All involve risk. Research by historians at institutions including Princeton, Oxford, and Yale has emphasized that indigenous nations often approach these alliances strategically rather than blindly supporting foreign interests. Leaders sought outcomes that would best protect their people, their territory, and their future. The decisions require extraordinary judgment. Unfortunately, judgment alone cannot guarantee success. You accompany a group traveling between settlements during a period of rising uncertainty. The path winds through thick forest. Summer heat presses against the skin. Insects buzz among ferns and wildflowers. The landscape remains beautiful. The conversations do not. People discuss military movements, trade disruptions, rumors of violence, uncertain loyalties. The concerns feel increasingly urgent. As tensions rise, some communities begin strengthening defenses. Messengers move rapidly between towns. Leaders coordinate responses to emerging threats. The atmosphere shifts from cautious diplomacy toward preparation. No one wants war. Many fear it may be unavoidable. A deeply human scene unfolds one evening. A young father repairs a hunting tool while speaking quietly with his family. His hands remain steady, yet concern appears in his eyes. He wonders what future awaits his children. He wonders whether peace can endure. The questions feel timeless. Parents across centuries ask similar things. Will tomorrow be safe? Will home remain secure? Will those we love be protected? The uncertainty weighs heavily. Eventually, conflict arrives. Raids occur. Retaliatory attacks follow. Military campaigns spread through parts of the Southeast. Communities that once focused primarily on farming trade and ceremony must now consider survival in a more dangerous environment. The emotional transition is profound. Confidence gives way to anxiety. Routine gives way to vigilance. Hope struggles against fear. Yet resilience remains. It always remains. You witness families adapting to changing circumstances. Some settlements relocate temporarily. Others strengthen cooperation with neighboring communities. Food supplies receive greater attention. Communication becomes increasingly important. Everyday life changes, but it does not stop. Fields still require tending. Children still require care. Elders still share knowledge. The ordinary responsibilities of life continue even during extraordinary times. A physically grounded moment stays with you. Late one afternoon, rain begins falling over a forest trail. The smell of wet earth rises immediately. Water drips from leaves. Mud clings to footwear. Travelers pull cloaks tighter against the weather while continuing forward. The discomfort feels real. So does the determination. People keep moving. They must. Historians still debate aspects of Cherokee participation in various colonial conflicts. Different communities sometimes pursued different strategies. Leaders faced changing circumstances and incomplete information. Surviving records do not always capture every perspective, leaving room for continued scholarly discussion. The complexity matters. History is rarely a story of unanimous decisions. Nations contain differing opinions. Communities contain disagreements. Individuals interpret risks differently. The Cherokee Nation is no exception. As warfare intensifies across the region, some towns suffer severe disruption. Trade routes become less reliable. Diplomatic relationships grow strained. The confidence that characterized earlier generations faces serious challenges. Yet something remarkable also emerges: adaptability. The Cherokee have already survived disease, demographic upheaval, and political transformation. They possess deep knowledge of their homeland. They maintain strong social networks. They understand how to respond to adversity. These strengths matter, perhaps more than ever. Night falls over a settlement recovering from difficult months. The atmosphere feels subdued, fires burn quietly. Conversations occur in low voices. Exhaustion hangs in the air, not despair. Exhaustion. There is a difference. People remain determined. A grandmother distributes food among relatives. A hunter returns from a long journey. Children drift toward sleep beside warm fires. Life persists. That persistence becomes its own form of courage. The stars emerge overhead. The same stars that watched earlier generations plant fields and tell stories. The same stars that witnessed first contact with Europeans. The same stars that now shine above a nation navigating increasingly dangerous circumstances. You look upward for a moment. The sky feels vast. The future feels uncertain. Yet the Cherokee Nation endures. Its leaders continue making difficult choices. Its communities continue supporting one another. Its people continue adapting to a world growing more turbulent with each passing year. The forests still shelter them. The mountains still surround them. The rivers still flow through the homeland. But the age of relative stability is ending. Larger struggles lie ahead. The conflicts of empire are reshaping the continent, and soon the Cherokee Nation will find itself caught between forces powerful enough to transform the future of North America itself. The years continue moving like the rivers of the southern mountains. One season fades into another. Forests turn green, then gold, then bare beneath winter skies, before spring returns once more. Generations grow older. Children become parents. Parents become elders. Yet the world surrounding the Cherokee Nation is changing faster than ever before. The great contests between European empires have begun reshaping the political map of North America. Colonial settlements spread farther inland. New roads appear where forests once stood untouched. Traders, soldiers, settlers, and officials move through territories that indigenous nations have known for centuries. You can feel the pressure building, not all at once, gradually, relentlessly. The Cherokee Nation now finds itself positioned between powerful forces. To the east and south, colonial populations continue growing. To the west and north, other indigenous nations pursue their own interests and alliances. Across the ocean, distant governments issue decisions that affect lives thousands of miles away. The challenge is enormous. How does a nation preserve its independence while surrounded by expanding powers? There are no easy answers. You stand atop a ridge overlooking a broad valley. Morning fog still lingers below. Sunlight touches the highest treetops first. The landscape remains breathtaking. Home still feels like home. Yet beneath the beauty lies growing uncertainty. Throughout the 18th century, Cherokee leaders devote increasing energy to diplomacy. They understand that military strength alone cannot guarantee survival. Negotiation becomes just as important as defense, perhaps even more important. Meetings occur constantly. Agreements are discussed. Boundaries are debated. Promises are made. Promises are broken. Then new negotiations begin. The process never truly ends. Research from scholars associated with institutions such as Harvard, Princeton, and Oxford has emphasized the extraordinary diplomatic sophistication displayed by indigenous nations during this period. Cherokee leaders often demonstrated detailed knowledge of colonial politics and frequently adapted their strategies to shifting circumstances. They must. The alternative is too dangerous. You accompany a delegation traveling to meet colonial representatives. The journey takes days through forests and across rivers. Horses move steadily along narrow paths. Supplies are carefully packed. Every member of the group understands the importance of the mission. The atmosphere feels serious, but not hopeless. Diplomacy remains a tool, perhaps the most important tool available. As the delegation approaches a colonial settlement, the contrast becomes striking. Wooden buildings stand close together. More settlers arrive each year. New fields spread across previously forested land. Expansion is visible. You can see it. You can smell freshly cut timber. You can hear the sounds of construction. The landscape itself is changing. During meetings, discussions often focus on land. Colonial officials seek access to territory. Cherokee leaders seek security for their communities. Both sides claim legitimate interests. The problem is that those interests increasingly collide. A tract of land may represent opportunity to one group. To another, it represents home. The difference matters profoundly. Inside a crowded meeting room, voices remain polite, yet tension lingers beneath every conversation. Agreements reached today may become sources of disagreement tomorrow. Trust becomes difficult. Not impossible, just difficult. A deeply human moment unfolds after one such meeting. A Cherokee representative sits quietly beside a fire late at night. Others have already gone to sleep. He stares into the flames, considering the day's discussions. The burden of leadership feels heavy. Every decision affects countless lives. Every compromise carries risks. Every refusal carries risks as well. Responsibility can be lonely. The fire crackles softly. Night insects sing beyond the light. The future remains uncertain. Back in the Cherokee homeland, Ordinary life continues. Families plant crops. Hunters travel familiar trails. Ceremonies bring communities together. Children learn traditions passed down through generations. This continuity provides strength. Yet, even those far removed from political negotiations begin noticing changes. More settlers appear near traditional territories. Trade patterns shift. Reports from neighboring regions grow increasingly concerning. The sense of pressure becomes difficult to ignore. Historians still debate the extent to which colonial officials fully understood indigenous political systems during this period. Some scholars argue that certain colonial leaders genuinely sought stable relationships. Others emphasize repeated misunderstandings and conflicting expectations. Surviving records reveal evidence supporting both interpretations. Human interactions rarely fit simple explanations. Misunderstanding often proves as powerful as hostility. One rainy afternoon, you shelter beneath a wooden structure while listening to travelers exchange news. Water drums steadily on the roof. The smell of wet wood fills the air. Mud covers boots near the entrance. The conversation turns toward land. Again, always land. New settlements continue appearing. Colonial populations continue increasing. Demographic momentum creates pressures that no individual leader fully controls. Even those wishing for peace face enormous challenges. The numbers alone are changing the continent. As years pass, Cherokee communities become increasingly aware that maintaining independence will require extraordinary effort. Military conflict remains possible. Diplomatic solutions remain necessary. Adaptation remains unavoidable. The nation exists in a delicate position between worlds, between cultures, between competing visions of the future. A reflective pause settles over the landscape. You walk beside a river near sunset. The water moves calmly over smooth stones. Fish occasionally break the surface before vanishing again. Trees along the bank cast long shadows across the current. The scene feels timeless, yet history is accelerating. The Cherokee Nation remains resilient. Its leaders continue negotiating. Its communities continue adapting. Its traditions continue providing identity and strength. But resilience does not eliminate danger. The colonial frontier continues advancing. Imperial rivalries continue evolving. Political uncertainty continues growing. The balance becomes harder to maintain. Night falls slowly. Stars emerge above the mountains. Wood smoke drifts upward from scattered settlements. Families gather for meals and conversation. Children listen to stories. Elders share wisdom. Life remains rich and meaningful. That reality is important to remember. Too often, history focuses only on conflict. Yet even during periods of tension, people continue living ordinary lives filled with work, friendship, laughter, worry, hope, and love. The Cherokee Nation is no different. Its people are building futures, protecting families, preserving traditions, preparing for whatever comes next. And what comes next will test the nation more severely than anything it has yet experienced. A revolution is approaching, not merely a colonial rebellion, a transformation that will alter the entire continent. When it arrives, every nation in North America will face difficult choices, including the Cherokee. The mountains remain where they have always been. Ancient ridges stretch across the horizon beneath changing skies. Rivers continue carving their paths through valleys. Forests sway gently in the wind, seemingly untouched by the political storms gathering beyond them. Yet history is approaching with unusual speed. The balance that Cherokee leaders have worked so carefully to maintain is beginning to unravel. Across the British colonies, dissatisfaction grows. Colonial settlers argue with imperial authorities. Taxes, representation, trade restrictions, and political rights become subjects of fierce debate. At first, these disputes appear distant. Arguments between colonists and their government seem unlikely to affect the Cherokee homeland. But distance offers little protection. Soon the conflict expands. Then it explodes. The American Revolution begins. For the Cherokee Nation, the situation is extraordinarily complicated. This is not simply a war between Britain and rebellious colonists. It is a conflict that threatens to reshape the entire political landscape of Eastern North America. Every possible choice carries risk. Support one side and face consequences if it loses. Support the other and face consequences if it wins. Attempt neutrality and discover that neutrality is difficult when armies are moving through nearby territories. The dilemma is real. You stand beside a gathering of Cherokee leaders as reports arrive from multiple directions. Messengers bring news of battles. Traders describe growing instability. Colonial settlements are divided. Loyalties shift rapidly. The atmosphere feels tense, not panicked. Focused. Everyone understands that major decisions lie ahead. A cool autumn breeze moves through the trees. Leaves drift slowly to the ground. The scent of wood smoke hangs in the air as families prepare for the coming winter. Life continues. History demands attention anyway. Many Cherokee leaders view expanding colonial settlement as a serious threat. British authorities, despite numerous disagreements with indigenous nations, have at times attempted to limit certain Western settlements. Colonial expansion, by contrast, often appears relentless. This reality influences political calculations. The logic seems straightforward. If rebellious colonists succeed, settlement pressure may increase dramatically. If Britain prevails, existing arrangements might continue, at least for a time. Research by historians from institutions including Yale, Princeton, and Oxford has emphasized that indigenous nations evaluated the revolution through their own interests, rather than through the ideological language of liberty and independence that often dominates traditional American narratives. The Cherokee are not passive observers of someone else's revolution. They are evaluating how best to protect their homeland. That distinction matters. You accompany a group traveling between towns as leaders seek advice and consensus. The journey unfolds beneath gray skies. Cold rain occasionally falls through the forest canopy. Mud clings to every path. The weather mirrors the mood. Uncertainty seems everywhere. Different individuals hold different opinions. Some advocate caution. Others favor stronger commitments. All understand the stakes. Historians still debate the extent of agreement among Cherokee communities regarding revolutionary alliances. Surviving records reveal a range of perspectives shaped by geography, local circumstances, and personal experience. No single viewpoint fully captures the complexity of Cherokee decision-making during this period. The nation faces difficult choices, like most nations do during crises. Eventually, violence spreads across frontier regions. Raids occur. Retaliatory attacks follow. Communities become entangled in a widening conflict that increasingly blurs distinctions between military objectives and civilian suffering. The emotional transition is painful. Diplomatic hopes give way to military realities. Confidence gives way to apprehension. The future grows harder to predict. One evening, you sit beside a fire with a family living near a frontier area. Their home remains intact. Their crops have been harvested successfully. Yet, worry fills every conversation. They have heard stories of attacks, stories of destroyed settlements, stories of families forced to flee. Fear travels quickly, sometimes faster than armies. A mother quietly prepares a meal while listening to the discussion. Her children sit nearby. She says little, yet her expression reveals concern. Will this conflict reach them? Will their home remain safe? No one can answer. The uncertainty itself becomes exhausting. Outside, the night air grows colder. Wind moves through bare branches. The fire provides warmth, but only within a limited circle. Beyond that circle lies darkness. Beyond that darkness lies an uncertain future. As the revolution continues, frontier warfare becomes increasingly destructive. Communities on all sides experience loss. Settlements are abandoned. Relationships built over decades deteriorate under the pressure of conflict. The human cost accumulates. Slowly, relentlessly, a physically grounded memory stays with you. After a difficult journey through rain-soaked terrain, travelers arrive at a settlement exhausted and silent. Wet clothing clings to their bodies. Mud covers their legs. Their faces reveal days of hardship. No dramatic speeches follow, just relief. Relief at arriving safely. Relief at seeing familiar faces. Relief at surviving another difficult week. Such moments rarely appear in official histories, yet they are part of history, perhaps the most human part. The Revolutionary Era forces Cherokee communities to confront realities beyond their control. Decisions made in Philadelphia, London, and military headquarters affect lives hundreds of miles away. Local actions produce regional consequences. Regional developments reshape national possibilities. The entire continent feels unstable. Still, resilience remains. Families support one another. Leaders continue seeking solutions. Communities preserve traditions, even amid uncertainty. The Cherokee Nation refuses to disappear into chaos. That determination becomes increasingly important. As the war progresses, it becomes clear that the outcome will transform North America, regardless of who prevails. The old imperial system is breaking apart. A new political order is emerging. No one knows exactly what it will look like. Everyone knows it will be different. The mountains witness these changes in silence. The rivers continue flowing. The forests endure. Yet the world around them is being remade. Night settles over the homeland once more. Fires glow through the darkness. Families gather together. Elders share stories. Children drift toward sleep. Ordinary life persists, even during extraordinary times. That persistence is a form of strength. The revolution has arrived. Its consequences are already visible. And when the fighting finally ends, the Cherokee Nation will face an entirely new challenge. A new country will stand on its borders. A country hungry for land. A country convinced of its destiny. And a country that will soon force the Cherokee people into one of the most difficult chapters in their history. The guns gradually fall silent. The great conflict that reshaped the continent begins drawing to a close. Across North America, exhausted communities attempt to understand what has changed and what remains the same. For the Cherokee Nation, the answer is complicated. The mountains still stand. The rivers still flow. The forests still stretch across the homeland. Yet the political world has been transformed. The British Empire no longer dominates the colonies along the Atlantic coast. In its place stands a new nation ambitious and expanding. The United States. Its leaders celebrate independence. Its settlers look westward. And the Cherokee Nation now finds itself facing a neighbor unlike any it has encountered before. You walk through a settlement recovering from years of uncertainty. Morning sunlight filters through the trees. The air smells of damp soil and wood smoke. Farmers move toward their fields. Children help carry water from a nearby stream. Life is rebuilding itself. Slowly, patiently, the scars of conflict remain visible. Some communities suffered direct attacks. Others endured displacement, disrupted trade, or political instability. Families lost relatives. Leaders faced impossible decisions. Entire regions experienced profound upheaval. Recovery requires effort. It also requires hope. Without hope, rebuilding becomes difficult. You notice that many conversations now focus on the future rather than the past. People discuss harvests, trade opportunities, new alliances, and ways to strengthen their communities. The shift feels significant. Grief remains, but determination grows alongside it. Researchers from institutions such as Harvard, Yale, and the University of North Carolina have emphasized the remarkable resilience shown by indigenous nations after the revolutionary period. Despite tremendous disruption, many communities actively sought to rebuild political institutions, economic networks, and social stability. The Cherokee Nation is no exception. Its leaders understand that survival depends upon adaptation. The old world is gone. A new one must be navigated. As the years pass, diplomatic meetings resume with renewed urgency. Representatives of the United States seek treaties. Boundaries become subjects of constant discussion. Land remains at the center of nearly every negotiation. Always land. The issue never disappears. You accompany a group traveling to one such meeting. The journey unfolds through rolling hills and dense forests. Spring rain has recently fallen, leaving the landscape vibrant and green. Birds sing from branches overhead. The beauty feels almost deceptive, because the conversations ahead will be difficult. Inside the meeting area, officials exchange greetings. Formalities are observed. Respectful language is used. Yet beneath the politeness lies a fundamental problem. The United States wants territory for settlement. The Cherokee Nation wants security for its homeland. The goals increasingly conflict. Neither side fully trusts the other. Perhaps neither side can afford complete trust. Historians still debate whether American leaders during this period genuinely believed peaceful coexistence was possible, or whether territorial expansion was always the dominant objective. Surviving documents reveal differing perspectives among policymakers, settlers, military officers, and local officials. The uncertainty complicates interpretation. Human motives rarely fit neatly into simple categories. Back in Cherokee, communities' life continues evolving. Agriculture remains essential. Trade adapts to changing circumstances. New opportunities appear alongside new challenges. A young farmer experiments with techniques learned through recent exchanges. An elder continues teaching traditional knowledge. Children grow up in a world more connected than that of their grandparents. Change becomes part of daily life. Not all change is welcomed. Not all change is resisted. Most communities find themselves balancing continuity and adaptation. The process is ongoing. One warm evening, you sit beside a family sharing a meal after a long day of work. The scent of cooked food drifts through the air. Firelight flickers against nearby walls. Outside, insects hum in the darkness. The conversation turns toward the future. Will peace last? Will agreements be honored? Will their children inherit the same homeland? No one knows, yet everyone hopes. Hope remains powerful, even when certainty is impossible. As rebuilding continues, Cherokee leaders pursue new strategies for national survival. They recognize that military resistance alone cannot address every challenge. Political organization becomes increasingly important. Diplomatic engagement becomes increasingly important. So does unity. The nation cannot afford endless division, not with so many pressures approaching from outside. A physically grounded moment captures the era perfectly. You watch workers repairing a structure damaged during earlier unrest. Fresh timber carries a clean scent. Hammers strike wood rhythmically. Sawdust gathers on the ground. The work is ordinary. The meaning is profound. People are rebuilding, not merely buildings. A future. The emotional atmosphere gradually shifts. Fear does not disappear, but confidence begins returning. Communities recover. Trade routes become more active. Ceremonies continue strengthening social bonds. Life regains momentum. The Cherokee Nation demonstrates something remarkable. Persistence. Many societies would struggle after such upheaval. The Cherokee certainly struggle as well. Yet, they refuse to surrender their identity or abandon their aspirations. That determination becomes increasingly visible. The homeland remains central to everything. The mountains are more than landmarks. They are memory. The rivers are more than waterways. They are connection. The forests are more than resources. They are belonging. These ties help explain why every treaty discussion feels so important. Negotiations are not abstract political exercises. They concern places where families live, work, remember, and hope. The stakes are deeply personal. As the century draws toward its end, new generations emerge. Many of them know the Revolutionary War only through stories told by elders. Their attention focuses on present opportunities and future possibilities. The nation begins looking forward, not because the past is forgotten, because survival requires vision. Night settles gently across the homeland. Cool air drifts through the valleys. Stars appear one by one above the mountains. Fires glow across scattered settlements. You pause beside a riverbank. Water moves steadily through the darkness. The current never stops. History feels similar. One era ends, another begins. The Cherokee Nation has survived war disease. political upheaval, and profound uncertainty. It now enters a new chapter defined by rebuilding adaptation and cautious optimism. Yet beyond the horizon, powerful forces continue gathering. American settlement is accelerating. Political ambitions are growing. Demands for land are increasing. The challenges ahead may prove even greater than those already faced. For now, however, the nation rebuilds. It gathers strength. It imagines possibilities. And in the years to come, those possibilities will lead to one of the most remarkable transformations in indigenous history. The river keeps moving through the mountains. Years pass. Seasons turn. Children become adults. The wounds left by revolution begin to heal, though they never disappear entirely. The Cherokee Nation enters a period unlike any in its history. Instead of merely reacting to events beyond its control, many leaders begin pursuing an ambitious vision for the future. They understand that the world around them is changing rapidly. The United States continues expanding. Trade grows more important. Diplomacy grows more complicated. Adaptation is no longer optional. It is necessary. Yet, adaptation does not mean surrender. It means finding new ways to preserve independence. You walk through a thriving Cherokee settlement on a clear spring morning. The scent of freshly turned soil rises from nearby fields. Birds dart between budding branches. Smoke curls gently from household fires. The atmosphere feels hopeful, purposeful. Communities are not simply surviving. They are building. Throughout the early 19th century, Cherokee leaders undertake one of the most remarkable political transformations in North American history. They seek to strengthen national unity, improve governance, and demonstrate that the Cherokee Nation can thrive in a rapidly changing world. The effort is ambitious. Some might even call it revolutionary. You begin noticing new conversations taking place in towns across the homeland. Discussions focus on law administration, education, economic development, and national identity. The vocabulary of governance grows increasingly sophisticated. So do the institutions. Leaders understand something important. If the Cherokee Nation hopes to preserve its sovereignty, it must be capable of operating effectively within a world dominated by powerful states. That realization shapes everything that follows. Research by historians at institutions including Princeton, Yale, and Harvard has highlighted the extraordinary political creativity displayed by Cherokee leaders during this era. Rather than passively accepting outside pressures, they actively developed national structures intended to strengthen self-government and protect their people's future. The transformation emerges gradually, not overnight. Major changes rarely do. You attend a gathering where respected figures debate questions of governance. The room feels warm despite cool weather outside. Sunlight enters through windows, illuminating faces deep in discussion. The atmosphere is serious. Yet there is excitement as well. People sense they are participating in something significant. How should authority be organized? How can laws be applied fairly? How can local traditions coexist with national institutions? The questions are difficult. The answers require patience. Different opinions emerge. Sometimes disagreements become intense. That is normal. Nation building rarely proceeds smoothly. A deeply human moment unfolds during one of these debates. An elder listens quietly while younger leaders present new ideas. He occasionally nods in approval. Other times, he appears skeptical. The scene captures a universal challenge. How do societies honor tradition while embracing necessary change? Every generation confronts this question. The Cherokee are confronting it now. Outside life continues. Farmers tend crops. Craftsmen pursue their trades. Families gather for meals. Children play in open spaces. Political transformation does not replace ordinary life. It exists alongside it. That balance matters. The nation is not being rebuilt by abstract theories alone. It is being shaped by thousands of individuals carrying out daily responsibilities while imagining a stronger future. As the years progress, efforts to strengthen national government accelerate. Leaders seek greater unity among Cherokee communities. They understand that fragmentation creates vulnerability. Unity creates leverage. Unity creates resilience. Unity creates possibility. The emotional atmosphere of the era feels different from previous decades. Earlier generations often focused on immediate survival amid warfare and uncertainty. Now many people focus on long-term development. There is optimism, not naive optimism, determined optimism, the kind that emerges after hardship. You walk along a road connecting several communities. Wagons move steadily between settlements. Travelers exchange news. Economic activity feels more vibrant than before. The homeland is changing. The changes are visible. A physically grounded detail captures the moment perfectly. Freshly cut timber lies beside a new public building under construction. The scent of pine fills the air. Workers coordinate their efforts carefully. Sawdust covers the ground. Creation, not destruction. That distinction feels important. Historians still debate the precise motivations behind certain reforms introduced during this period. Some emphasize strategic adaptation to American political realities. Others stress internal desires for stronger national institutions. Most scholars agree that both factors likely played important roles. Human decisions rarely have a single cause. The Cherokee transformation reflects practical necessity, political vision, and cultural determination. All at once, one evening, you sit beside a gathering where community members discuss recent developments. Firelight flickers across attentive faces. Cool air drifts through the valley. Crickets sing beyond the circle of light. The conversation is thoughtful. People talk about opportunities, challenges, responsibilities, the future. A young father wonders what kind of nation his children will inherit. An older woman speaks about preserving values that have guided generations. A local leader emphasizes the importance of unity. Their concerns differ. Their hopes overlap. They want security. They want dignity. They want continuity. The aspirations feel timeless. As the Cherokee Nation grows more organized, outside observers begin taking notice. Some express admiration. Others remain skeptical. Certain American officials acknowledge the sophistication of Cherokee institutions. Yet recognition does not guarantee respect. That reality will become increasingly important. For now, however, progress continues. Communities strengthen. Leadership evolves. National identity deepens. The nation begins resembling something remarkable. A republic, not in the exact form familiar to modern observers, but a functioning political entity with laws, institutions, and a growing sense of collective purpose. The achievement is extraordinary, especially given the pressures surrounding it. Night settles across the mountains once again. Stars appear above the ridges. Rivers reflect faint moonlight. Families gather inside warm homes. The homeland feels alive with possibility. Challenges remain. Many challenges. American expansion has not slowed. Land pressures continue growing. Political conflicts remain unresolved. Yet the Cherokee Nation enters this new era with confidence. Not because danger has disappeared, because strength has grown. The foundations of a Cherokee republic are taking shape. Its leaders are thinking boldly. Its communities are working tirelessly. Its people are imagining a future in which their nation remains independent and prosperous. For a time, that future seems within reach, and the next chapter will reveal one of the most extraordinary achievements in the entire history of the Cherokee people. The morning sun rises over a nation in transformation. Light spreads across valleys where rivers wind through fertile land. Fields shimmer with early dew. Roads connect growing communities. Travelers move between towns carrying news supplies and ideas. The Cherokee Nation is entering one of the most remarkable periods in its history. The foundations of stronger government have been laid. Communities are increasingly connected. Leaders are thinking beyond immediate survival and toward long-term national development. Now, another powerful force begins reshaping the future. Knowledge. Not merely knowledge passed from parent to child. Knowledge preserved in writing. Knowledge shared across great distances. knowledge capable of strengthening an entire nation. You walk through a settlement alive with activity. The smell of fresh timber drifts through the air. Children gather near a school building. Adults discuss political matters outside nearby homes. The atmosphere feels energetic and hopeful. Something important is happening. The Cherokee Nation is investing in education. For generations, knowledge has traveled primarily through oral traditions. Stories, lessons, and cultural values pass from elders to younger generations through memory and experience. That tradition remains deeply important. It does not disappear. Instead, new forms of learning begin emerging alongside it. The combination proves transformative. One figure stands at the center of this development: Sequoyah. His achievement becomes one of the most extraordinary intellectual accomplishments in North American history. Working largely on his own, he develops a writing system that allows the Cherokee language to be recorded and read with remarkable efficiency. The accomplishment astonishes many observers. At first, some people doubt the idea. Others become curious. Eventually, enthusiasm spreads. You imagine standing beside a small gathering where individuals practice reading written characters for the first time. Faces brighten with surprise. Words that once existed only in speech now appear before their eyes. The experience feels almost magical. Yet, it is entirely practical. Literacy changes possibilities. Messages can travel farther. Information can be preserved more accurately. Government can function more efficiently. Communities can remain connected across distance. Research from scholars at institutions, including Yale, Harvard, and Stanford, has consistently recognized the development of the Cherokee writing system as one of the most significant achievements in indigenous intellectual history. Its impact is profound. You watch a young student carefully tracing characters onto paper. Sunlight enters through a nearby window. The smell of ink mixes with the scent of wood from the building itself. The child pauses, concentrates, then smiles after completing a line successfully. A simple moment, a historic one. Every literate society is built from thousands of such moments. As literacy expands, schools become increasingly important. Parents want children prepared for a changing world. Leaders recognize that education strengthens national resilience. Knowledge becomes a resource, perhaps the most valuable resource of all. Throughout the Cherokee Nation, learning gains prestige. Students study reading, writing, mathematics, and other subjects considered essential for the future. The atmosphere feels optimistic. Communities are investing in tomorrow, not merely surviving today. Meanwhile, political institutions continue developing. Laws become more organized. Administrative structures grow more sophisticated. National governance gains stability. The Cherokee Nation increasingly resembles a modern republic. This transformation attracts attention from outside observers. Some are impressed. Others remain skeptical. A few struggle to reconcile their assumptions about indigenous peoples with the reality unfolding before them. Reality often challenges prejudice. The Cherokee experience certainly does. One afternoon, you attend a meeting where officials discuss legal matters affecting multiple communities. Papers rest upon tables. Records are reviewed. Decisions are debated carefully. The scene feels familiar, not because it resembles stereotypes of frontier life, because it resembles governance. The nation is functioning. That fact carries enormous significance. A physically grounded detail catches your attention. Sheets of paper rustle softly whenever a breeze enters the room. Ink stains mark several fingertips. Wooden floors creak beneath shifting weight. The sensory details make the transformation feel tangible. This is not an abstract political project. It is daily reality. Historians still debate the degree to which educational and governmental reforms emerged from internal priorities versus responses to external pressures. Some scholars emphasize strategic adaptation to American expectations. Others stress indigenous agency and innovation. Most evidence suggests that both influences contributed to the process. The debate remains active. The achievement remains undeniable. As literacy spreads, another milestone appears: a newspaper. The Cherokee Phoenix begins publication, becoming a powerful symbol of national confidence and intellectual vitality. News, political discussions, and public information circulate more widely than ever before. Ideas move quickly. Connections deepen. National identity strengthens. You imagine receiving a copy of the newspaper on a cool morning. Fresh ink carries a distinctive scent. Pages contain information from across the nation. Readers discuss articles with neighbors and family members. The experience creates community, even among people separated by distance. The emotional atmosphere of the era continues evolving. Earlier generations often faced uncertainty and crisis. Those concerns have not vanished. Yet many people now feel genuine pride in what their nation is accomplishing. The pride is understandable. Schools are growing. Government is strengthening. Literacy is expanding. The nation is demonstrating remarkable adaptability. One evening, you sit beside a family gathered around lamplight. A parent reads aloud while children listen attentively. Outside, insects hum beneath a warm summer sky. Inside, words bridge generations. The scene feels intimate, almost ordinary. Yet it represents something extraordinary. A nation teaching itself. A nation preparing itself. A nation believing in its future. The mountains remain unchanged. The rivers continue flowing. The forests still shelter familiar communities. Yet within those communities, profound transformation is underway. Knowledge is spreading. Institutions are maturing. Confidence is growing. The Cherokee Republic appears stronger than ever. Night settles gently across the homeland. Lamps glow through windows. Conversations drift into darkness. Students review lessons. Officials prepare reports. Families plan for tomorrow. The future seems promising, perhaps even bright. But beyond the borders of the Cherokee Nation, another force continues gathering strength. American expansion. Its appetite for land has not diminished. Its ambitions continue growing. Soon the success of the Cherokee Nation itself will become part of a larger conflict. A conflict that education, literacy, and political achievement alone may not be able to prevent. For now, however, the Republic flourishes, and its greatest years are still unfolding. The nation seems to be flourishing. Morning sunlight spreads across fields that stretch toward distant hills. Wagons move along busy roads. Farmers inspect healthy crops. Merchants discuss prices and deliveries. Children hurry toward lessons while officials prepare for another day of government business. The Cherokee Republic has entered a period of remarkable prosperity. For many people living within its borders, the future appears full of possibility. You travel through the homeland during these years of growth. The landscape feels familiar, yet signs of progress appear almost everywhere. New buildings stand beside older structures. Trade becomes more active. Communities feel increasingly connected. Confidence is visible, not loud or boastful. Steady, earned. The nation has survived enormous challenges. Disease war, political uncertainty, and diplomatic struggles have tested its resilience. Yet, instead of disappearing, the Cherokee people have built institutions that support stability and growth. The achievement is extraordinary. You arrive in a thriving town shortly after sunrise. The air smells of fresh bread, damp earth, and wood smoke. Horses wait patiently near wagons loaded with goods. Merchants exchange greetings as businesses open for the day. Activity surrounds you, yet nothing feels chaotic. There is order, purpose, momentum. Agriculture remains the foundation of prosperity. Farmers continue cultivating fields across the homeland. Corn, livestock, and other products support both local communities and broader economic activity. Success requires effort. It always does. You walk beside a farmer, inspecting crops after recent rainfall. Moist soil presses softly beneath your feet. Water droplets still cling to leaves. The farmer studies the fields carefully, noticing details that others might miss. Experience matters. Observation matters. The land rewards attention. Nearby family members work together, preparing tools and supplies. Their movements reflect routines practiced over many years. the scene feels peaceful and productive. Researchers associated with institutions such as Harvard, Yale, and the University of Chicago have noted that the Cherokee Nation developed a diversified economy during this period, combining agriculture, commerce, and increasingly sophisticated political administration. Prosperity does not emerge from luck. It emerges from organization. Throughout the Republic, roads and communication networks help connect communities. Information travels more efficiently than before. Trade links towns that might once have felt isolated. Distance becomes less limiting. The nation feels more unified. One afternoon, you accompany travelers moving between settlements. The road winds through forests and open farmland. Warm sunlight filters through scattered clouds. The journey feels comfortable compared to the difficult travels of earlier generations. Progress often reveals itself in small conveniences. A better road, a stronger bridge, a more reliable means of communication. Each improvement appears modest. Together, they transform daily life. As communities grow, local government becomes increasingly important. Courts operate. Officials address disputes. Laws provide structure. Citizens participate in public affairs. The Republic functions. That reality deserves appreciation. Many nations struggle to create stable institutions. The Cherokee Nation has succeeded in doing so under immense pressure. Inside a government building, discussions proceed with quiet seriousness. Documents rest on desks. Officials review reports. Citizens bring concerns requiring attention. The atmosphere feels familiar, not because it resembles some distant ideal, because it resembles responsible governance. People are working to solve problems. A physically grounded detail draws your attention. Sunlight falls across stacks of papers near an open window. A gentle breeze causes pages to shift slightly. Ink glistens where recent notes have been written. The sensory moment feels simple, yet it reflects something profound, a nation managing its own affairs. The emotional tone of the era remains hopeful. Families see opportunities for their children. Communities invest in development. Leaders pursue long-term goals rather than merely responding to immediate crises. Optimism grows, carefully, realistically. Still it grows. One evening you share a meal with a family whose lives reflect this prosperity. The table is modest but abundant. Conversation flows easily. Parents discuss future plans. Children speak excitedly about lessons and ambitions. The atmosphere feels warm, comfortable, secure. Such moments rarely dominate historical narratives. Yet they matter. History is not only treaties and conflicts. It is also family dinners, shared laughter, plans for tomorrow, the confidence of ordinary people. As prosperity expands, cultural life continues thriving as well. Education remains important. Community gatherings remain important. Traditions continue providing identity and continuity. Progress does not require abandoning the past. Many Cherokee leaders understand this deeply. The goal is not to become someone else. The goal is to remain Cherokee while succeeding in a changing world. That distinction shapes national development. Historians still debate the precise balance between cultural preservation and adaptation during this period. Some scholars emphasize the adoption of certain American political and economic practices. Others focus on the persistence of indigenous values beneath institutional changes. Most agree that Cherokee society combined both continuity and innovation. The combination proves powerful, at least for a time. You notice increasing signs of economic activity throughout the homeland. Workshops produce goods. Farmers expand operations. Trade connections strengthen. Success attracts attention. Unfortunately, attention is not always beneficial. Beyond Cherokee borders, as American settlers observe these developments closely, some express admiration. Others view Cherokee prosperity through a different lens, a troubling lens, one shaped by ambition. The United States continues growing rapidly. Population increases, new settlers arrive. Demand for land expands year after year. The pressure never truly stops. Even during prosperity, the shadow remains. A reflective pause settles over the landscape. You stand beside a hill overlooking a prosperous valley at sunset. Fields glow beneath golden light. Smoke rises gently from homes. The sounds of daily life drift upward on the evening air. The scene feels almost perfect. A nation at peace, a nation governing itself, a nation building a future. You understand why many people believe the Cherokee Republic has secured its place in the world. The evidence appears convincing. Schools are functioning. Courts are functioning. Businesses are functioning. Communities are thriving. What more proof could anyone require? Yet history often contains cruel ironies. Sometimes success creates new challenges. Sometimes achievement attracts unwanted attention. Night arrives slowly. Stars appear above the mountains. Families gather indoors. Roads grow quiet. The homeland settles into peaceful darkness. For this moment, prosperity endures. For this moment, the Republic stands strong. But beyond the horizon, powerful interests continue watching Cherokee lands with growing desire. And soon, events outside the nation's control will threaten everything that has been built during these remarkable years of success. The prosperity of the Cherokee Republic does not go unnoticed. As another decade unfolds, the roads beyond the nation's borders grow busier. More settlers arrive in the American South. New farms appear. New towns emerge. Forests fall beneath axes. Rivers that once marked distant frontiers increasingly lie at the center of expanding settlement. The United States is growing rapidly, and with growth comes hunger. Not merely hunger for opportunity, hunger for land. You stand on a ridge overlooking a broad valley at dawn. Thin fog drifts across fields below. Birds call from distant trees. The landscape remains beautiful, much as it has for generations. Yet, the pressure surrounding it is increasing. Every year brings more newcomers. Every year brings new demands. Every year makes the future less certain. For many American settlers, Cherokee territory appears highly desirable. The land is fertile. Rivers provide transportation. Forests offer resources. The region seems full of possibilities. To settlers, it often represents opportunity. To the Cherokee, it represents home. The difference could not be more important. Throughout the early 19th century, the cotton economy transforms the American South. New technologies increase production. Global demand expands. Planters seek additional land suitable for cultivation. The consequences reach far beyond agriculture. Economic ambition begins shaping national politics. You travel through a frontier region where settlement continues pushing westward. The air smells of freshly cut timber. Tree stumps mark recently cleared fields. Wagons move along rough roads carrying families and possessions toward new homes. Expansion has a sound. Axes striking wood. Wheels creaking over dirt roads. Hammers driving nails into fresh boards. The landscape itself seems to be changing. Research by historians from institutions including Princeton, Harvard, and the University of North Carolina has highlighted the enormous influence of the cotton economy on American expansion during this period. Demand for productive land helped drive political pressure against indigenous nations throughout the Southeast. The forces at work are powerful and increasingly difficult to resist. Back within the Cherokee Nation, leaders observe these developments with growing concern. They understand that prosperity alone may not protect their homeland. Their schools function. Their courts operate. Their government remains stable. Yet settlers continue arriving. The contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. You attend a meeting where community leaders discuss recent developments. The room feels warm despite cool weather outside. Papers cover several tables. Reports from various regions are reviewed carefully. The mood is serious, not fearful, serious. People recognize the challenge. The question is how to respond. Some advocate continued diplomacy. Others emphasize legal strategies. Still others warn that no argument may satisfy those determined to acquire Cherokee land. Every position contains truth. That reality makes decisions harder. A deeply human moment unfolds after the meeting ends. Several leaders remain behind, speaking quietly long after most participants have left. Their voices carry fatigue, not physical fatigue, political fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from confronting the same problem repeatedly. The pressure never disappears. It simply returns in new forms. Outside, evening rain begins falling. Water taps softly against rooftops. The smell of wet earth rises from the ground. Lantern light glows through windows as people make their way home. The atmosphere feels reflective, almost melancholy. Yet determination remains. The Cherokee Nation continues pursuing peaceful solutions. Leaders engage with American officials. They emphasize treaties. They emphasize legal rights. They emphasize the nation's successful institutions. The argument seems logical. The Cherokee have adopted many forms of government admired by American leaders. They maintain schools. They publish newspapers. They operate courts. They govern themselves. Surely such achievements should strengthen their position. Many Cherokee citizens believe so. Unfortunately, logic and power do not always move together. Historians still debate the degree to which American policymakers genuinely considered coexistence during this era. Some scholars point to officials who expressed respect for Cherokee accomplishments. Others emphasize the overwhelming political momentum favoring expansion. The surviving evidence suggests a mixture of views, though the pressure for land continued growing. The trend is unmistakable, year after year, election after election, settlement after settlement. The demand increases. You walk through a prosperous Cherokee town one afternoon. Children attend lessons. Merchants conduct business. Farmers discuss harvests. The community feels vibrant and successful. The contrast is striking. Inside the nation, evidence of stability appears everywhere. Outside, the nation pressure continues mounting. A physically grounded detail captures the moment perfectly. Dust rises from a busy road as wagons pass through town. Horse hooves strike packed earth rhythmically. The warm scent of summer grass drifts across nearby fields. Everything appears normal. Yet beneath the surface, profound uncertainty is growing. Families begin discussing possibilities that once seemed unimaginable. What happens if treaties fail? What happens if political pressure continues increasing? What happens if the United States decides that Cherokee rights matter less than settler ambitions? The questions linger. No one wants to ask them. Many people cannot stop asking them. One evening, you sit beside a family gathered outside after sunset. Crickets sing from nearby grass. A gentle breeze cools the air after a hot day. The stars shine clearly above the mountains. The conversation begins casually, then gradually turns toward politics, toward land, toward the future. Parents worry about children. Children sense the concern. Everyone hopes for peaceful resolution. Hope remains powerful, but hope alone cannot guarantee outcomes. The emotional atmosphere of the era becomes increasingly complex. Pride in national achievements exists alongside anxiety about external threats. Confidence coexists with uncertainty. The Cherokee Republic remains strong. Yet strength does not eliminate vulnerability. As the years pass, national politics in the United States become more directly involved in Cherokee affairs. Politicians speak about indigenous lands with increasing frequency. Expansion becomes a popular cause among many voters. The stakes continue rising. A reflective silence settles over the homeland. You stand beside a river under moonlight. Water flows steadily through darkness. The current appears calm, though powerful forces move beneath the surface. The image feels symbolic. The Cherokee Nation still prospers. Its institutions still function. Its people still believe in their future. Yet, beneath the surface, larger currents are gathering strength. Economic ambition, political calculation, population growth, territorial desire. Soon those currents will converge. And when they do, the Cherokee Republic will face the greatest challenge in its history. The prosperous years are not yet over, but their end is approaching. The land begins to feel heavier under the weight of expectation, not physically, but politically. As the 19th century advances, the Cherokee Nation finds itself surrounded by an expanding United States. whose ambitions no longer remain distant or theoretical. They are direct, visible, and increasingly urgent. You stand at the edge of a cleared field in early morning light. Mist drifts low across the soil. The air carries the scent of damp grass and wood smoke. In the distance, wagons creak along a road that has grown busier year after year. The world is pressing inward. At the center of this growing tension lies something simple and dangerous: gold. When traces of gold are discovered in regions near Cherokee territory, the discovery spreads rapidly through rumor and report. At first, it is uncertain. Then it is confirmed. Then it becomes a magnet for thousands of settlers seeking fortune. The reaction is immediate. You feel the shift in atmosphere almost overnight. Roads fill with strangers. Camps appear along riverbanks. Temporary shelters turn into permanent settlements. The forest begins to retreat again, under axes and shovels. Opportunity to newcomers feels limitless. To the Cherokee Nation, it feels like intrusion accelerating into inevitability. Inside Cherokee communities, alarm grows. Leaders convene urgently. Messengers travel quickly between towns. Discussions intensify across the homeland. The question is no longer abstract. It is immediate. How does a nation protect its land when outsiders believe that land contains wealth they are determined to extract? You attend a gathering where voices speak with controlled urgency. The room feels dense with concern. Papers are passed between officials. Reports describe increasing encroachment, unauthorized settlement, and political pressure. Outside, wind moves through trees that have stood for generations. Inside, history is shifting. Modern historians associated with institutions such as Harvard, Yale, and Stanford have emphasized that gold discoveries in Cherokee regions dramatically intensified American settlement pressure. Economic incentives combined with political momentum to create a situation that became increasingly difficult to resist through diplomacy alone. The forces were not subtle. They were overwhelming. Yet Cherokee leaders continue attempting legal and diplomatic solutions. They appeal to treaties. They reference established agreements. They point to recognized sovereignty. The arguments are grounded in logic. But logic now competes with mass migration and economic ambition. You walk through a settlement where daily life continues despite growing tension. A woman tends a garden beside her home. Children carry water from a nearby stream. A craftsman repairs tools under a shaded structure. Ordinary life persists, even as extraordinary pressure builds. That contrast becomes one of the defining features of this era. One afternoon, rain falls heavily across the region. The sound of water striking leaves and rooftops creates a steady rhythm. The ground turns soft and muddy. Travelers struggle along roads that have become difficult to navigate. The rain does not stop movement. It only slows it. Just as legal arguments do not stop expansion, they only slow it. In Cherokee councils, the mood becomes increasingly complex. Some leaders argue for continued resistance through legal channels. Others express concern that external forces have already surpassed the ability of treaties to contain them. Still others emphasize maintaining unity at all costs. No simple solution exists. Every path carries risk. Historians still debate whether earlier diplomatic strategies could have permanently halted encroachment if external political conditions had been different. Some scholars suggest that stronger enforcement of treaties might have altered outcomes temporarily. Others argue that demographic and economic pressures made long-term containment unlikely, regardless of policy. The disagreement remains unresolved. But the pressure on the Cherokee Nation is very real. You notice it in small details, in conversations that end more quickly than before, in glances exchanged between neighbors, in the way people listen more carefully during public meetings. Uncertainty has entered daily life, yet life continues. A physically grounded moment captures the tension of the era. You watch as a wagon passes through a muddy road, wheels sinking slightly with each turn. The driver urges the horses forward. The sound of strain and effort fills the air. Behind the wagon, newly cleared land stretches into the distance. Forest replaced by field. Field becoming settlement. Settlement becoming something else entirely. Expansion is not abstract. It is visible, tangible, relentless. As gold-related migration increases, political pressure intensifies in the United States. Public discussions about indigenous land grow more aggressive. Some officials frame Cherokee territory as an obstacle to national development. Others express concern about legal and moral obligations. But the momentum continues moving in one direction, toward removal. You sit beside a fire one evening with a family discussing recent developments. The flames crackle softly. Night air cools the ground around you. Insects sing beyond the circle of light. The conversation is quiet but serious. They talk about neighbors who have already encountered settlers near their land. They talk about changes in hunting areas. They talk about uncertainty regarding the future. A child listens without fully understanding, sensing only the emotional weight in adult voices. The fire burns steadily, but even fire cannot remove uncertainty. As months pass, Cherokee leaders escalate diplomatic efforts. They send representatives to negotiate. They present legal arguments. They seek recognition of sovereignty that has already been established through treaties and governmental structures. At times, they receive acknowledgement. At times, they receive resistance. The inconsistency itself becomes part of the struggle. The emotional toll increases, not through sudden catastrophe, but through continuous pressure, day after day, year after year. A reflective pause settles over the landscape. As evening arrives, you stand on a hill overlooking a valley where lights begin appearing in scattered homes. Smoke rises from chimneys. The smell of cooking food drifts through the air. The world still feels alive, still familiar, still Cherokee. Yet something fundamental is shifting beneath it. The United States is no longer a distant political entity negotiating borders. It is a growing presence physically occupying nearby land, and its hunger for expansion is not slowing. The Cherokee Republic, once seen as a model of indigenous governance and adaptation, now finds itself facing a reality that legal achievement alone cannot fully resolve. The gold rush has not created the conflict. It has accelerated what was already coming. Night settles across the mountains. The river reflects faint starlight as it moves through the darkness. Forests whisper softly in the wind. And within Cherokee communities, one truth becomes increasingly clear. The struggle ahead will not be about prosperity. It will be about survival. The mountains feel quieter now, as if they are listening, not to birds or wind or water, but to something heavier arriving from the east. A force shaped by law, politics, and ambition, moving slowly yet steadily across the continent. You stand in a Cherokee council gathering during a tense season. The air inside the room feels still. Sunlight filters through wooden openings, tracing pale lines across worn surfaces. Outside, life continues, but inside, decisions carry unusual weight. The Cherokee Nation is now fully entangled in a struggle that is no longer only local or regional. It has become national in scale and increasingly legal in nature. At the center of this struggle are questions of sovereignty, rights, and recognition. The Cherokee leadership has spent years building a functioning republic with courts-written laws and structured governance. These achievements are now being tested in the highest arenas of American authority. You sense the tension in every conversation. Words are chosen carefully. Silences feel meaningful. One of the most important moments in this era arrives when Cherokee legal arguments are brought before the highest court in the United States. The case represents more than a dispute over land. It represents the fundamental question of whether indigenous nations are recognized as sovereign entities under American law. The atmosphere surrounding this moment is intense. Cherokee leaders present their position with clarity. They argue that their nation has its own government, its own laws, and its own treaties recognized by earlier agreements. Their case is grounded in established legal principles. The reasoning is structured. The evidence is substantial. The stakes are enormous. Modern historians associated with institutions such as Harvard, Yale, and Princeton often describe this period as one of the most significant legal confrontations in early American history, involving indigenous sovereignty. The arguments presented highlight the complexity of defining political identity in a rapidly expanding republic. The courtroom becomes a space where two different visions of nationhood collide. One vision emphasizes indigenous sovereignty and treaty obligations. The other emphasizes federal authority and territorial expansion. You imagine the weight of that moment. The quiet tension inside the courtroom, the careful language, the awareness that the outcome will shape lives far beyond the walls of the building. Outside life continues in Cherokee communities, but uncertainty grows. Farmers still tend fields. Families still gather for meals. Children still learn from elders. Yet, conversations increasingly return to the same question. What will happen if law and power do not align? A physically grounded detail captures the atmosphere of this era. Rain falls steadily over a quiet settlement. Water collects along wooden structures and drips from rooftops in slow rhythm. The sound is constant, almost meditative, yet it carries a sense of waiting for decisions made far away. In places where Cherokee voices are heard, but not always followed. The legal outcomes during this period bring moments of recognition for Cherokee sovereignty. Decisions are issued that affirm certain rights and acknowledge legal standing. These rulings represent important victories in principle. Yet principle and enforcement are not always the same thing. You feel the tension between recognition and reality, between law written on paper and power exercised on land. Historians still debate the extent to which these legal victories could have been fully implemented in practice, given the political environment of the time. Some scholars emphasize the strength of judicial reasoning. Others focus on the limitations of federal enforcement and political will. The disagreement reflects a broader uncertainty about law in moments of rapid expansion. In Cherokee communities, reactions to legal victories are mixed. There is hope, but also caution. People understand that a decision is not always the end of a struggle. Sometimes it is only the beginning of a new phase. Outside, political pressures continue to grow. Settlers move into disputed areas regardless of legal rulings. Local authorities sometimes struggle to enforce decisions that conflict with popular demand for land. The gap between law and reality widens. You walk through a Cherokee town after news of a major court decision has arrived. People gather in small groups discussing what it means. Some express relief. Others remain cautious. Many simply try to understand what comes next. The emotional atmosphere is complex. Victory and uncertainty exist side by side. Later that evening, you sit near a fire with an elder who speaks slowly, choosing words with care. The flames cast shifting light across his face. Shadows move gently around him. He speaks about endurance, about cycles of challenge and adaptation, about the importance of remembering who you are even when the world around you changes. The message is not simple optimism. It is grounded resilience. Outside the settlement, the night is deep and quiet. The forest seems endless. The river nearby moves with steady patience. Stars hang above the mountains like distant witnesses. Yet even in this quiet, pressure continues to build. Political debates in the United States increasingly focus on expansion and settlement. Economic interests push westward. Public sentiment in many regions favors growth into new territories. Cherokee land lies directly in the path of that expansion. The contradiction becomes harder to maintain. Legal recognition on one side, physical pressure on the other. You sense that these two forces are moving toward collision. A final reflective moment closes the section. You stand alone at the edge of a river before dawn. Mist rises from the water. The current flows steadily, indifferent to human arguments or court decisions. The river does not choose sides. It only moves forward. And as dawn slowly approaches, it becomes clear that the Cherokee Nation is standing at a turning point where law, politics, and geography are converging into a single, unavoidable reality. What comes next will not be decided by words alone. The winter arrives early that year. Cold air settles over the Cherokee homeland, moving through valleys and forests with a quiet persistence. Frost gathers along wooden rooftops. Rivers slow at their edges. Breath becomes visible in the morning light. But the cold is not the only thing pressing in. A far greater force is now moving through the nation. You stand in a Cherokee town where news has arrived that cannot be ignored. The atmosphere feels different from earlier years. Conversations are shorter. Movements feel more deliberate. Even silence seems heavier. The decision from distant political centers is no longer abstract. It is becoming action. You hear the words spoken repeatedly in quiet conversations. Removal, not as suggestion, not as debate, as policy taking shape. The Cherokee Nation, despite its legal victories, faces increasing pressure to leave its ancestral homeland. Treaties, court decisions, and diplomatic efforts have created moments of recognition, but they have not stopped the political momentum building beyond Cherokee control. Now that momentum is turning into enforcement, families gather in small groups as uncertainty spreads. Some refuse to believe it at first. Others quietly begin preparing for possibilities they hoped would never come. Elders sit near fires longer than usual, as if listening for something in the flames. The world feels unstable. You walk through a settlement where daily life continues, but differently. Children still play near homes. Farmers still check stored crops. Yet there is a noticeable absence of ease. Everything feels temporary, as if the ground itself has begun to shift. Historians associated with institutions such as Yale, Princeton, and Harvard describe this moment as the culmination of decades of expansionist policy in the southeastern United States. The combination of political pressure, settler demand, and federal authority creates conditions that ultimately lead to forced relocation. The legal and moral debates remain complex among scholars today. But for the people living through it, complexity becomes lived experience, not theory, not history, reality. One evening, you sit with a family as they share a quiet meal. The fire inside the home burns low. Shadows move across walls. Outside, wind presses against wooden structures carrying the sound of rustling trees. The conversation is subdued. They speak about uncertainty, about neighbors considering leaving early, about what it means to prepare for something that has not yet fully arrived but feels unavoidable. A child listens without fully understanding, sensing only the tension in adult voices. No one raises their voice. There is no need. The situation speaks for itself. As days pass, official instructions and negotiations lead toward organized removal. Plans begin forming that will reshape entire communities. Families are told to prepare for relocation westward, away from ancestral lands that hold generations of memory. The emotional weight is immense, not only because of distance, but because of loss. You walk through a forest path that feels especially quiet. Leaves lie scattered on the ground. Branches move gently in the wind. The sound of footsteps seems louder than usual. Every step feels meaningful. Every direction feels uncertain. A physically grounded detail lingers in your mind. A bundle of belongings rests beside a doorway, carefully wrapped. Not yet taken, not yet abandoned, but no longer fully secure in place. The sight captures the suspended moment between staying and leaving. Waiting becomes its own kind of suffering. Historians still debate the internal Cherokee responses during the early stages of forced removal. Some accounts emphasize organized resistance through legal and diplomatic channels. Others highlight efforts to maintain unity and prepare for relocation in ways that would preserve as much community structure as possible. The evidence shows a range of responses across different towns and families. There is no single reaction, only human responses under pressure. Some leaders continue appealing to agreements and legal rights. Others focus on protecting families and preparing for movement. Still others struggle to reconcile what is happening with what they believed the nation had achieved. The Cherokee Republic, once seen as a model of adaptation and governance, is now facing its most severe test, not of institutions, but of survival. You accompany a group traveling between settlements during this period. The road is cold and muddy. Winter moisture clings to clothing. The sky remains overcast, casting a dull light over everything. Travel feels heavier than before, not because of distance, but because of meaning. Every journey now feels like part of something larger and unavoidable. As removal plans take shape, families begin making difficult decisions. What to take? What to leave? What can be carried across long distances? What cannot? Objects become emotionally charged. A cooking pot, a woven blanket, a carved tool, a written document. Each item carries memory. Each decision carries weight. One evening you sit near a fire with a group preparing for departure. The flames crackle softly. Sparks rise into the cold air and disappear into darkness. People speak quietly about what they hope to preserve, not just possessions, but identity. The Cherokee Nation is not only a place on a map. It is a network of relationships, traditions, language, and shared memory. That understanding becomes especially important now. As removal approaches, efforts to maintain cultural continuity intensify. Elders teach stories more frequently. Families share knowledge more deliberately. Communities strengthen bonds in anticipation of separation from ancestral land. A sense of urgency grows. Not panic, purpose. Even in grief there is preparation. Night falls across the homeland with unusual stillness. Stars appear above frozen fields. The wind moves gently through bare branches. Fires glow in scattered homes, each one a small island of light in a vast darkness. You stand at the edge of a settlement, watching quietly. The Cherokee people are not disappearing. They are preparing to move, to carry themselves forward, to survive what has been decided far beyond their control. And in that quiet, cold landscape, one truth becomes unavoidable. A journey is about to begin that will test endurance, identity, and the very meaning of homeland itself. The roads are frozen when the journey begins. Cold wind moves across open land, cutting through forests and fields that once felt permanent. Frost clings to grass and bare branches. The sky is pale and distant, holding no warmth. Everything now feels in motion. You are walking alongside Cherokee families as they leave ancestral towns behind. Not all at once, but in waves. Groups gather their belongings, secure what they can carry, and begin moving westward under conditions that feel both organized and deeply painful. This is not travel in the ordinary sense. It is displacement. The weight of it is visible in every step. Children hold tightly to parents' hands. Elders move slowly, supported by relatives. Bundles of possessions are tied carefully and loaded onto wagons or carried on backs. Horses breathe heavily in the cold air. No one speaks more than necessary. Even silence feels shared. The landscape that once represented home now becomes a path leading away from it. Rivers are crossed, hills are climbed. Familiar landmarks are left behind one by one. Each departure carries emotional gravity. You pass through a temporary encampment where families rest during the journey. Fires burn low against the wind. Smoke drifts sideways in the cold air. People huddle together for warmth, wrapped in blankets and worn clothing. The smell of wood smoke mixes with frost and damp earth. A child sits quietly near a fire, staring into the flames without speaking. Nearby, an elder watches the horizon with tired eyes. No one tries to force conversation. There is too much to process. Modern historians associated with institutions such as Yale, Harvard, and Stanford describe this phase as one of the most tragic forced migrations in United States history. The journey westward, often conducted under harsh conditions, resulted in immense suffering across Cherokee communities and other indigenous nations. The human cost is staggering, but statistics alone cannot capture lived experience. You walk alongside a group moving through a cold stretch of road. The wind presses against clothing. Snow begins to fall lightly, then steadily. The ground becomes more difficult to traverse. Movement slows. Progress continues, step by step. A wagon wheel becomes stuck in mud, softened by melting snow. People gather immediately to help. No arguments, no hesitation. Together they push, lift, and guide it free. Cooperation becomes instinctive. Survival depends on it. The moment passes, but it leaves an impression. Even in hardship, community remains intact. Even in loss, support persists. As days stretch into weeks, the journey becomes more exhausting. Food supplies are limited. Weather conditions fluctuate between freezing cold and damp, biting wind. Illness spreads more easily in such environments. Fatigue settles into bodies and minds. Yet the movement continues. You notice a quiet strength emerging in small gestures. A shared piece of food offered without words. A blanket adjusted over someone sleeping. A hand resting briefly on another's shoulder. No speeches are made. None are needed. Historians still debate the full logistical details of the removal process, including how different groups experienced varying conditions depending on route timing and available resources. Some records emphasize extreme hardship during winter travel periods. Others highlight moments where local assistance or adaptation eased parts of the journey. The overall consensus remains clear that suffering was widespread and profound. But within that suffering, humanity persisted. One evening, you sit near a fire along the route. The flames are smaller than before, carefully conserved. The air is sharp and cold. Stars appear above the open sky with unusual clarity. People sit close together, not speaking much, just existing together. A quiet song begins softly from one individual. Others listen. After a moment, a second voice joins, then another. The sound is gentle, unforced, carrying through the cold air. It is not performance. It is memory carried in sound, a connection to what is being left behind and to what must be carried forward. You realize that the journey is not only physical, it is emotional, cultural, and spiritual. Everything that defines identity is being moved across distance under extreme pressure. Yet, it is not being erased. It is being preserved through effort, through intention, through people refusing to let it disappear. A physically grounded detail captures the harshness of the journey. Frost forms on the edges of blankets overnight, turning fabric stiff by morning. Breath becomes visible in long, slow exhalations. Footsteps crunch through frozen ground before softening into mud during warmer hours. The environment is constantly shifting and constantly demanding. Despite this, the group continues moving forward. There are no real alternatives. The path westward is now the only path permitted. Hope becomes more complex during this stage. It is no longer tied to the homeland being left behind. It begins shifting toward survival, toward rebuilding, toward whatever future may exist beyond the journey. Not optimism. Endurance. You see a leader walking among the people, checking on families, speaking quietly where needed, offering reassurance without exaggeration. The responsibility carried is immense. Every decision affects lives already under strain. Leadership here is not ceremonial. It is deeply human. As the days pass, signs of exhaustion increase. Yet so does determination. The Cherokee people continue moving not as scattered individuals, but as a connected community forced into motion. Identity travels with them. Language travels with them. Memory travels with them. Night after night, fires appear along the route like scattered stars on the earth itself. Each one marks survival for another day. Each one marks continuity, even as the homeland fades behind them, even as uncertainty stretches ahead. You stand at the edge of the moving group one final time in this section, watching silhouettes pass through the cold landscape. The wind carries faint echoes of conversation and soft footsteps. The journey is not over. It has only begun. And what lies ahead will test not only endurance, but the ability of a nation to remain itself under the most difficult conditions imaginable. The land begins to feel unfamiliar even as it is finally reached. After weeks of exhausting travel, the Cherokee groups arrive in regions far to the west. The landscape is different here. Wider skies, open plains, new rivers cutting through unfamiliar terrain. Trees appear in scattered clusters rather than dense forests. Everything feels both hopeful and disorienting. You stand with families as they look across this new territory. The air is warmer than the cold they endured on the journey, yet it carries its own kind of emptiness. There are no ancestral markers here. No remembered hills. No inherited names for familiar places. This is not home. Not yet. But it is where survival must continue. The first priority is shelter. Almost immediately, people begin building. Wagons are unloaded. Tents are raised. Temporary structures appear along riverbanks. Fires are established for cooking and warmth. Work begins without delay because there is no other option. Rest comes later, if at all. A physically grounded detail anchors the moment. Fresh-cut timber is stacked quickly into rough frames for shelters. The scent of raw wood mixes with dust carried by the wind. Tools strike wood in steady rhythm as construction begins under changing skies. Creation under pressure, not choice, necessity. Modern historians associated with institutions such as Princeton, Yale, and the University of Chicago describe this phase as one of rapid re-establishment of Cherokee communities in the Indian Territory. Despite extreme hardship during removal, survivors demonstrated extraordinary resilience in rebuilding social, political, and cultural structures. The effort is immediate and collective. You walk through a developing settlement where life is slowly taking shape. Paths begin to form between homes. Cooking fires become more organized. Children stay close to adults as work continues around them. The sense of instability remains, but structure begins returning. Human beings adapt, even after profound disruption, even after loss, even after displacement on a national scale. Leadership becomes essential in this new environment. Cherokee leaders who survived the journey now face the challenge of rebuilding governance, yet far from the ancestral homeland. Councils are re-established. Decisions must be made about land use, community organization, and survival priorities. The work is overwhelming, yet it continues. You observe a gathering where leaders discuss how to establish stability in this new territory. The atmosphere feels serious but determined. There is no luxury of despair. Every conversation must lead toward practical outcomes. Food distribution, shelter construction, health concerns, community coordination. Survival systems must be rebuilt from the ground up, and quickly. The emotional weight of relocation remains present in every face. People carry grief that does not need to be spoken aloud. It exists in silence, in pauses between tasks, in the way people look toward distant horizons. The homeland is gone, but memory remains. Historians still debate the full complexity of Cherokee rebuilding efforts in the West. Some emphasize the rapid reconstruction of political institutions. Others focus on the cultural adaptation required to establish stability in a completely new environment. Most agree that the speed of recovery was remarkable, given the scale of displacement and loss. But recovery does not erase trauma. It coexists with it. As weeks pass, the new settlements begin to stabilize. Fields are prepared for planting. Water sources are mapped. Trade routes slowly begin to form with neighboring communities in the region. Life, though fragile, continues forward. You notice small signs of normalcy returning. A child laughing during play, a shared meal between families, a tool being repaired with care instead of urgency. These moments matter deeply. They are evidence that life is not only continuing, but beginning again. One evening, you sit beside a fire within the new settlement. The wind moves gently across open land. The sky here feels larger, more exposed, filled with stars that seem unfamiliar yet constant. People gather close for warmth. A story is told, not about what was lost, but about what must be carried forward. The telling is quiet, steady, and deliberate. It is not an attempt to forget the past, but to preserve identity within a changed reality. Language becomes a lifeline. Memory becomes structure. Community becomes survival. A physically grounded moment emerges as the firelight flickers across faces. Dust rises briefly from the ground as wind passes through the settlement, carrying the smell of dry earth and new construction. The sound of distant tools continues even into the night. Building does not stop. It simply shifts pace. In Cherokee, Council's attention now turns toward long-term rebuilding. Schools must be reestablished, governance systems adapted, cultural practices maintained under new conditions. The challenge is not only survival, but continuity. How does a nation remain itself after being uprooted? That question shapes every decision. You walk through early morning light in the settlement as workers begin another day. The horizon is wide and open. The silence feels different from the forests of the east. It is not absence. It is space. Space that must be filled again with life. Historians continue to examine the psychological and cultural impact of relocation on Cherokee communities, noting both the profound trauma and the equally profound resilience displayed in rebuilding efforts. Academic discussions often highlight how identity was preserved not through geography, but through social cohesion and cultural practice. In simple terms, the Cherokee carried themselves, and in doing so, carried their nation forward. As the sun rises higher, activity increases across the settlement. People move between tasks. Children follow elders. Leaders consult with one another. Slowly, steadily, a new society begins to take shape, not identical to what was lost, but connected to it, always connected. The emotional tone of this period is complex. Grief remains present, but so does determination. Survival is no longer enough on its own. The goal becomes continuity across generations, to ensure that what was Cherokee does not end here. The fire from the previous night is now ash, but embers remain warm beneath the surface, still capable of reigniting. That image lingers, a nation reduced, but not extinguished. And as this new chapter begins in unfamiliar land, one truth becomes clear. The Cherokee people are not defined solely by the land they left behind. They are defined by their ability to endure, rebuild, and remember. The years do not move evenly anymore. They stretch, compress, and fracture under the weight of conflict, returning to the continent. In the new Cherokee settlements of the West, life has begun to stabilize. But the outside world has not settled into peace. Instead, it is breaking apart again. You walk through a community that has rebuilt itself with remarkable determination. Homes stand in rough but functional rows. Fields have begun to produce crops again. Children run along dirt paths that did not exist a few years earlier. There is life here. But there is also tension, because another war is approaching. Not one that originates within Cherokee society, but one that spills into it from beyond its borders. The American Civil War begins to unfold across the United States, dividing states, families, and institutions. The conflict is rooted in political and economic fractures, but its consequences extend far beyond the original centers of power. Once again, indigenous nations find themselves pulled into struggles that are not of their making. You sense the change gradually at first. Messengers arrive more frequently. Military activity increases in nearby regions. Political alliances shift quickly, sometimes without warning. The land feels unstable again. Modern historians associated with institutions such as Yale, Princeton, and Harvard describe this period as one in which Indian territory became strategically significant due to geography, resources, and political positioning. Both sides of the Civil War seek influence and alliances among indigenous nations. Pressure returns, but in a different form than before. This time, it is not expansion alone. It is division. You sit beside a council gathering in the evening light. The air is still warm from the day, but a cool wind begins to move through the settlement. People speak carefully, aware that every decision now carries consequences tied to a much larger conflict. The Cherokee Nation must once again navigate impossible choices. Which side, if any, to support? How to preserve unity internally? How to protect communities already weakened by earlier displacement? No decision feels simple, and no outcome feels guaranteed. Historians still debate the internal divisions that emerged within Cherokee leadership during this era. Some groups favored alignment with the Union. Others leaned toward the Confederacy. Still others advocated strict neutrality. These divisions reflected regional pressures, historical grievances, and differing interpretations of survival strategy. The nation, already strained by removal, now faces internal disagreement layered upon external war. You walk through a settlement at night, where lanterns glow softly inside homes. Conversations are quieter than usual. People listen more than they speak. Even children seem aware that something serious is unfolding beyond the horizon. The emotional atmosphere is fragile, not broken, but strained. A physically grounded moment captures the uncertainty. A horse stands tied near a wooden post, shifting nervously as distant thunder rolls across the plains. Dust rises briefly in the wind before settling again. The air carries the faint smell of rain and smoke. Change feels like weather now, unpredictable, approaching. During the Civil War, Cherokee communities experience renewed hardship. Military movements pass through or near their territory. Alliances bring temporary advantages but long-term complications. Families are once again affected by decisions made far away in political centers. Yet despite this, daily life continues. Fields still require tending. Children still require education. Elders still share stories and guidance. Life does not pause for war. It adapts around it. One evening, you sit with a family listening to distant reports of battles. The firelight is steady, but the mood is subdued. A mother holds her child a little closer than usual. A father listens in silence, considering what the future might hold. No one speaks of certainty, only possibilities. Some hopeful, some difficult, all uncertain. Research by historians at institutions such as Stanford, Oxford, and the University of Chicago emphasizes that indigenous nations during the Civil War were often forced into strategic positions shaped by geography and political necessity rather than ideological alignment. Cherokee decisions reflected survival under conditions of extreme pressure rather than simple loyalty to either side. The reality is complex and deeply human. As the war progresses, Cherokee communities experience both internal strain and external demands. Resources become harder to secure. Movement becomes more restricted. Political negotiations grow increasingly complicated. Still, governance continues. Councils meet. Decisions are made. Communities adapt. There is resilience, but it is tested repeatedly. You walk through a field at dusk where crops sway gently in the wind. The sky is layered with deep orange and fading blue. The beauty of the scene contrasts sharply with the instability surrounding it. That contrast defines the era. Peace within, conflict without, and uncertainty everywhere in between. A reflective pause settles over the landscape as night arrives. Fires glow across scattered settlements. The sounds of conversation drift into the cool air. Somewhere in the distance, a drum signals communication between groups. The Cherokee Nation remains intact, but not untouched. It has survived removal. It now survives war again. And each survival reshapes what it means to be a nation under pressure. As the Civil War continues, it becomes clear that its outcome will not only determine the future of the United States, but also redefine the position of indigenous nations within it. For the Cherokee, another transformation is coming. One shaped not only by external conflict, but by the long aftermath of survival itself. The war finally fades, but silence does not bring peace. It brings aftermath. You stand in the Cherokee settlements after years of conflict have ended across the broader continent. The air feels different now. Not lighter, not heavier. Just changed, as if the land itself is adjusting to what has passed through it. Smoke no longer rises from distant battlefields, but nothing has returned to what it once was. The United States emerges from the Civil War, transformed stronger in centralized power and more determined in its national direction. For the Cherokee Nation, the end of the war does not restore stability. Instead, it brings renewed pressure, new policies, and new challenges shaped by a nation rebuilding itself through expansion and reconstruction. You walk through a community where life continues in steady rhythm. Fields are tended, homes are repaired. Children grow in a world shaped by stories of both removal and survival. Elders sit in quiet reflection more often than before. The past is never far away. It lives in memory. It lives in language. It lives in every conversation about identity and belonging. Modern historians associated with institutions such as Harvard, Yale, and Princeton often describe this post-war era as a continuation of displacement pressures rather than a return to normalcy. Policies affecting indigenous nations become increasingly structured around assimilation, land reorganization, and federal oversight. The Cherokee Nation, though resilient, must now navigate a world where survival means more than physical relocation. It means cultural endurance under sustained pressure. You sit near a council gathering in the fading light of day. The atmosphere is quieter than earlier eras, but no less serious. Leaders discuss laws, education, land rights, and the preservation of identity. Their voices are measured, thoughtful, and deeply aware of history. Everything they speak carries weight, because everything has already been tested. A physically grounded moment anchors the scene. Wind moves through tall grass outside the meeting place, bending it in slow waves. Dust rises briefly from a nearby path before settling again. The sky is wide and open, filled with the kind of stillness that follows long upheaval. The world feels vast and fragile. Historians still debate how best to interpret the late 19th century for the Cherokee Nation. Some emphasize cultural survival against overwhelming odds. Others focus on legal and political constraints imposed by federal authority. Many agree that both perspectives are necessary to understand the full picture. There is no single conclusion, only continuity under change. You walk through a settlement at night where lanterns glow softly in windows. Families gather indoors. Stories are told again and again, preserving memory across generations. Children listen to accounts of removal, rebuilding, and resilience. History becomes lived inheritance, not abstraction, not text, experience. One elder speaks quietly about what it means to carry a nation forward after everything has been taken and rebuilt again. The words are not dramatic. They are steady, grounded, honest. Survival is not only about remaining alive. It is about remaining oneself. As years pass, the Cherokee Nation continues adapting within a rapidly changing United States. Education remains important. Governance continues. Communities preserve language traditions and identity, even as external pressures evolve. The form of life changes, but the core remains. You stand at the edge of a river at dawn. Mist rises gently from the water. The current flows steadily unchanged in its movement, despite everything that has happened along its banks. The river becomes a final reflection. History moves like water, around obstacles, through time, never stopping. The Cherokee Nation's story from ancient homelands in the Southeast, through removal, rebuilding, war, and renewal, is not a story of disappearance. It is a story of persistence under unimaginable pressure, of identity carried across distance, of community rebuilt again and again, of memory that refuses to dissolve. As the sun rises higher, light spreads across the landscape. The settlement behind you begins to wake. Smoke rises from early fires. People move into another day of work, teaching, and living. Ordinary life continues, and in that continuity lies the most powerful truth of all. The Cherokee Nation endures not because it was untouched by history, but because it survived being reshaped by it. Its republic was challenged. Its homeland was lost. Its people were displaced. Yet its identity persisted through language memory, governance, and community. And that persistence continues into the present. The story does not end here. It continues wherever Cherokee people continue to live, remember, and build. The river flows forward. So does time. And so does the nation. Blessings to you and your family.